Hello, everyone. Welcome back into yet another Star Wars Sunday. We are here, and this is a monthly collaboration that I do with DIzneyDan. And each and every time we do this, we have a fantastic time with it. And it's just going to be fantastic again today as we are finally getting into the good movies.
Yes.
And it doesn't get any better than this because we are starting with the originals. And just like we do every month, we always have a special guest. And this month is no different as we have the man, RobFuz, joining us. Rob, thanks for being here, pal. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
Oh, it's
Thank
our
you so much.
pleasure.
It's definitely an honor to be on episode 4. It's definitely an honor. As you guys know, I love this show. I watch it all the time, and it just I try to promote it so much because it's an awesome idea, guys. I'm so proud of you. I can't believe you're on episode 4 already. I can't wait till the Rise of Skywalker. I can't wait till the Rise of Skywalker. You're almost there. Well, I had a brain part there a second. Sorry, guys, but yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited for this whole series, and I'm so honored to be here. Thank you guys so much.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We're going to have a great time with this one today. And, of course, my partner channel, the man who earlier today kind of laid down the gauntlet. Very, very different. But we're not going to get into that right now. But he's
right now.
Here for yet. Finally, Dan, we're into the ones we've been waiting for.
5 months, dude. 5 months we've been waiting to talk about this movie. The movie that started everything. We're finally getting time now to sit down and talk about the Star Wars movie. The Star Wars movie that started everything. And I'm super excited to have Rob with us as well, who loves the originals and is pretty much the OG on the original Star Wars movie. So I'm super excited to have Rob with us. So it's going to be a really fun show. I can't wait. And surprisingly, I don't think we're going to be getting a lot of Dan rants today. Because I did all that yesterday.
I was going to mention that. I don't think there's going to be much rants today, Walt. I don't really. That's why I'm going to be a little disappointed. Yeah, please, I was going to bring it up. Please, in the chat room, keep count of Dan's rant because I don't think we're going to get much today. Which is
well, it's because I did 300 yesterday on Fiasco. So.
That's true. But real fast, let's say hi to a few people in the chat before we get started here, because as usual, we always appreciate those that come into the chat and take your time out of your day to spend it with us when I'm sure there could be plenty of other places you could be, other streamers you could be watching, but you chose to be here, and we definitely appreciate it very much. And, of course, we have Kay Atwood's here. Joseph Andrews is here. Dole Whip Dead. Jeff is here. We also have Amanda the Lucky Minute. Samantha Lowe's in here. Armando Christian, welcome in. Thank you for being here. Grace F., thank you for being here. And Two Real Geeks is in here as well. Brian's in here. Brian Eisenhart, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for being here. Dougie, Walter Grams is in the house as well. Mike Wheeler's here. Melissa's here. She sounds familiar to me. I think I know who she is. Timothy Rainwaters is here as well. And thank you all very, very much for being here. And Dougie says, please try to not call in A New Hope too often for the sake of my sanity. Try not to call it A New Hope. All right, episode 4. How's that? But it is A New Hope. That's what it is.
By the way, Walt, I just want to congratulate you on 1,500 subscribers. I haven't got to do it publicly talking to you and everything. That's so awesome. I just got on your page and I just remembered to congratulations. 1,500 subscribers.
Hey,
it's a big accomplishment.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Hopefully one day I'll get where you are, 2,000, buddy.
Yeah.
But thank you. I appreciate that very much. So, yes, I think Dan touched on it. We'll start right there. This is the movie, and Rob and I both know because we were there. Kind of shows our age a little bit, but we were there.
We established that before the stream.
Yeah.
Oh, you flatter me, guys.
Yeah, we were there. We were there for what, in my opinion, kind of launched this phenomenon, because that's what this is. I mean, Star Wars has stood the test of time. We're talking over 40 years later, and it's still relevant today. And this is the movie that started it all. So, Rob, I want to start with you. What was, going back and thinking about the first time you saw it and back when it first came out, what do you remember about Star Wars, this movie, A New Hope?
Yeah, it's a good point, Dougie. Like, it was Star Wars. It wasn't episode 4. It wasn't A New Hope. It was Star Wars. And you got to remember, too, guys, and Dan just it's just because of his age, he can't relate. There's nothing. You don't have any other vision of anything, and it came out of left field. And unfortunately, I told Walt, that I didn't even. And I've told this story on my channel before. I never saw it in the theater. I was like 7, 8 years old when it came out, and 6 really when it first came out. And I just wasn't ready to see it in the theater. We didn't really go see movies that much. I eventually saw it later on a couple times in the theater, like the re-release and everything. But it was just. But as a kid, and I see my kids too, like. Their friends saw it. People talk about it. It was such a huge phenomenon. You would go down the Jersey Shore. You would see. By the way, I'm wearing my Star Wars shirt. So, but you would see shirts with like the iron-on press-on shirts, and you got to remember too, like it wasn't an annual occurrence at the time where like Baby Jaws, and then Star Wars about that time. Like these mega blockbuster movies just weren't around at the time, and to see that rise build and everything, it was amazing. Like the premiere and the droids, and I just never, it blew my mind, right? Well, it just they weren't around then. Like it just
absolutely
it's amazing.
I agree 100%. I'll remember, and Dan, I'm going to touch on you in just a second. Let me say hi to a couple more people because we had a ton of people just jump in. We have Kenny, Alpha Travelers in here. Welcome in, Kenny. Steve from Steve's World, my other partner channel. Steve, thank you for being here, bud. I appreciate it. And I think that was it. R. Johns is here. Richard, welcome in. The legend. Grace F is here as well. Oh, my gosh. We got a lot of people coming in. So thank you all very much for being here. Rob, you're right. It was I'll touch on it and what I remember in just a minute. But you're right. It was unlike anything else at that time. What I remember, but real quickly, I'll give you this story. I remember in 1977, my sister wanted to see Star Wars. I didn't want to see it. I cared nothing to see this movie. I didn't. I was like, what? I don't want to see that. That doesn't look like it's going to be any good. But she wanted to see it. So my parents took us, and reluctantly I went, and I absolutely fell in love with the movie. My sister, for her, it was meh. She was okay with it. It's just funny how the roles reversed. I didn't want to see it. I went reluctantly, and then yet now it's kind of my favorite trilogy or saga of all time. And you're absolutely right, Rob. Back then, there was nothing else like it. There was just nothing else that epic that came out like that. It was something we hadn't really seen when it came to science fiction. And it was just, it blew the covers off the doors with everything. And it just started this phenomenon as to where we are. And you're right, because it was every 3 years before we got movies after that. And it was just, it took off like crazy. Yeah.
I think I wound up seeing it. Like, this is really going to age me. VHS, it's even beyond that. Betamax was a abandoned format like 30 years ago. But for some reason, my parents' friend had a bootleg of it, in the 70s on Betamax, which is just funny. I think maybe I saw it like 78, 79 or something. And they had a bootleg copy on Betamax. That's embarrassing. But I did see it there. That's what I actually first saw. It blew my mind. That's when I fell in love with it. And R. John said he saw it, I think, a little later. Maybe, I don't know when it first came out, but I definitely saw it a little later because I think it was such a phenomenon. They re-released it a lot in the theaters. So
yeah, it was great. It was great. What about you, Dan? What about the first time you remember seeing it?
Oh gosh, so I was literally just trying to find this box set that I had, which is a VHS collection of the original Star Wars trilogy. And this was the special edition. I think this was the first time it was released as a special edition on this 3 trilogy VHS set. Now, I'll probably have to go find it somewhere because I don't know where it could be, but I know it's somewhere here. But I remember I remember I must have been, I don't know, 4 years old, 5 years old. I don't even remember. And I just see this big, tall, black metal robot and this old guy. One guy has a red sword and one guy has a blue sword, and they're like fencing. They're not even like having a big on like sword fight. They're just having a little like stab at each other. And I just see these white goofy men running around and a gold guy and a tin can. Like, I was just like, what is this? This is great. I want to watch more of this. And
how old were you when you saw it, Tim?
I must have been around 4 or 5 years old. And since then, I rewatched this VHS box set. I mean, religiously. I mean, I would probably watch every single one of these movies, all 3 movies of the original trilogy, maybe once a month. And I continued to do that. I continued to go back and watch episode 4, episode 5, and episode 6. And I just remember watching episode 4. I was just like, this is so weird and something I've never seen before. Because everything that came before that were Disney movies. So this was like my first adult movie. And I think I just fell in love with it. And I've had birthday parties all based around it. I've had memorabilia. I've just fallen in love with this franchise ever since I watched the first movie when I was 4 or 5 years old. So that's probably when I first watched it. But again, like I said, these are the special editions and not the originals.
Yeah, and there's nothing like the originals. There's
I agree. Can I just think as Dan's telling me about his thing, I forget. This is another embarrassing thing. VHS and video store. You would have to go to the video store to rent the movie and everything. If you remember, Walt, at first you couldn't even really buy movies in the video store.
You
like,
couldn't.
They would be like $100, $120 or something like that, and it was just impossible to buy them. I remember the first time I ever bought this movie, I bought them used, like they were just used and everything. And I bought the trilogy used, and I'm embarrassed to say too, I've bought the first, episode 4, 5, and 6. I've bought at least on every format, whatever came out. I'm going to say 5, 6 times, all 3 of those movies. I bought them so many times, which is weird. Like all the different editions, and Lucas was good at that. They were good at keep re-releasing stuff in the theater and all that stuff. We're going to touch on that too. But
yeah, absolutely. A few other people just jumped in. I want to say hi to Grace. Courtney Rainwaters is here. Greg from Greg's Disney Adventures. Welcome in, Greg. Zachary Pollock is here as well. And also we have Ruth Metcalf is here. Joey's World. It's Joey's World.
Hey, Joey.
We got Cargo 2. Grace F. Grace, I don't remember if I said hi to you, but I want to make sure I don't miss you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And you guys are 100% correct. But what's really funny, before we get into the movie, I want to touch on this really, really fast. Oh, Hassan V1, welcome in as well. Thank you for being here from London. Welcome in. Out your way.
Yeah, not far from me.
Not far at all, absolutely. But the other thing that I think George Lucas did really, really well, once he realized just how well these movies were doing and how it had taken off, the merchandise.
Yeah.
Was unbelievable. You talk about a fortune. The merchandise itself was unbelievable.
But don't you find it crazy that even today you can still go to a store and buy a Luke Skywalker action figure? I think it's like the most successful franchise of merchandise, sold merchandise of all time.
Oh, I think so. Oh, absolutely.
Second to like Barbie.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Crazy.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Or Legos, maybe Legos.
Or Legos, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Legos might be one. But, I mean, when you're talking about IP.
As a franchise, as a franchise.
Yes, movies.
Yeah.
I don't see anything that can even touch it.
No.
It's
crazy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. And yeah, you can walk into, well, I was going to say Toys R Us, but you can't walk into those anymore.
Right.
But you could walk into a toy store and pick up a Luke Skywalker or a Jawa or something like you can find these characters from the original movies, which is still crazy. And this was 40 years ago. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Kenny says, and we're going to touch on this in a little while. Kenny said, Walt asked the panel this, do you think Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland was a flop? As you know, Disneyland stopped hiring 2 weeks after it was open, and their vice president states the attendance was terrible. We're going to get into that in a little bit. We're going to talk about the Disney parks and how it correlates to these movies, which, of course, it started with Star Wars: A New Hope, which we'll get into in a little bit. But definitely, we'll touch on that for sure. RV into Disney, welcome in as well. And I apologize, guys, if I'm all over the place. Dan, you know me. I'm not the best host in remembering how to keep things in order, but I'll do my absolute best. But I do want to get into the movie, and Rob, we're going to start with you. We're going to break this down into 3 kind of areas. We'll start with the first part of the movie, which is kind of Tatooine, where we get our introduction to most of the characters. And then we'll move on to the kind of the middle part of the movie, the crux of the movie, I think, with the Death Star, and then we'll move on to the final act as well. But the first act of this movie, of course, this is the first time I've ever seen a movie where we see the crawl like that to kind of give you an introduction to the movie.
You've never seen that in any movie.
No, exactly. It was definitely a first. And then, of course, we'll get into it. We can start wherever you guys want, but we can the first scene of the ships going by, and you see this little ship going by, and then you see this gigantic ship that you just think is never going to end. And that's how they start the movie. And right off the bat, it's like they catch you with, oh my gosh, what is going on here? And of course, this is where we start with the first two characters who are the longest tenured probably in any of these movies. Who's the first two we see? We see 3PO and R2-D2. It's what do you think of the beginning of the movie for you two guys? What do you remember about that?
I'll let our guest go first.
Yeah, please, Rob.
No, between the crawl. Thanks, Dan. I'm sorry. Between the crawl and come on, John Williams' score, like the best score of all time. Come on, you hear that? It's unbelievable. You see those ships come in, then you see like there's so like. I love watching movies and I love seeing what happens when in a timeline. I'm just weird like that. So within that, I think it's a little over 2 hour movie. Like seeing like in the act, you guys analyze that too. But like I took some little bit of notes too. By the way, $11 million budget. It's made $775 million all time. I had those facts for us too, which is crazy. You know,
say 11 million is nothing.
It is zero. Yeah, but you got to remember that too. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dan, but go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, even at the time, 11 million was still not as much as people. I mean, compared to today, it's nothing at all. But even back then, it still was a reasonable budget. It was nothing going to be anything, groundbreaking in terms of how much money they used to make the movie.
Robert Downey probably made that alone for Avengers.
If you think about Avengers made over 2 billion, and Star Wars was made for 11 million,
Right.
that just boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Filmmaking was so different then. I love watching behind the scenes how they made the models and all that kind of stuff. But seeing that, like I took some notes too. The first sighting, you see all the calamity on the ship. You see C-3PO, R2-D2 running around and everything. It's just like, whoa! You're like, boom! You're catapulted in that world right off the bat. The action, everything, and then it was amazing. Like, can I go a little bit past that first scene?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then. You see, you're fed these characters, C-3PO and R2-D2. Then you're fed Darth Vader, like that first sighting of Darth Vader. You've never seen him before as a kid, and you're like, "What is that?" Like he's so intimidating, he's so big and everything. And like you can see this movie, like it's kind of early Darth Vader, so he's not as powerful as with the other leaders and everything. But like he really stands his own. And you see, Princess Leia come up and everything, and she's a brave woman, to go up against Darth Vader like that and confront him and that whole conflict there with them too in the beginning.
Oh
it's
yeah,
just so good.
Dan,
yeah.
What about you, buddy?
One of my funniest scenes that I always kind of feel like it's funny that the first time you see Darth Vader is he walks through the door. You never see this any other time. He's got his hands on his hips and he looks one side and then he looks the other side and he just walks off. And I'm just like, this guy is so cool. And it's a weird kind of gesture. He's pretty much saying, look at these little rebel scum. Like that's pretty much what he's saying. And and you see R2 and 3PO who haven't changed really. Throughout this whole franchise. I mean, obviously the prequels changed a little bit about C-3PO, but they've stayed the same kind of character. They've stayed together the majority of the time, especially in this movie, and they kind of have a love-hate relationship that they've had. They're kind of like a married couple. Like they kind of just like they get on with each other, but then they have arguments, which we'll get into. And then, you get introduced to Princess Leia, who is one of the strongest female protagonists in any kind of movie, especially during that time. So, yeah, and I think Carrie Fisher gives a great first performance and just, again, it's kind of like you're straight into the action. You don't know what's happening. You got this tiny ship. You got this humongous ship that is chasing it down and it gets captured and you have no idea what's going to happen. Things are going off. People are shooting each other. You're straight into the action, and I think it's great. And it gives you a first impression of something, especially in 1977, that you've never seen before. So, yeah, I think it's a great opening scene.
Yeah, Hassan V1 says the first sighting of Darth Vader is spectacular. I agree. Kind of a few people in the chat. Two Real Geek says, first time we saw Vader, he was very breathtaking. Hassan B1 also says they enjoyed the bar scene with Han Solo and Greedo, which we'll get into in a little bit for sure. I'm sure we'll have a little bit of debate there. Okay. But I will say this about what Rob said is exactly 100% true. When Darth Vader walks through that door for the first time, it just, everybody else is in white. The stormtroopers are white. Everybody's wearing these light colors. And when he comes through the door, it's just an attention getter right away. You're like, who is this? He doesn't even have to say anything. And he doesn't say anything. And already you're like, he's in charge.
Yep.
You know that he's the man just from that look.
You got all these white dummies running around, and
yes.
There's the big guy. Like he's got the bigger helmet. He's got the cloak.
It's absolutely true. And Rob touched on it too. I think that Carrie Fisher's role in this really you talk today, they always talk about strong female leads. That's what that was. That was that role in that movie. That role, she's a strong female lead. She's not a damsel in distress. She is, but isn't. She's not afraid. She stands up to Darth Vader. Like Rob said, the dialogue with her in the very beginning there, Darth Vader, only you could be so bold. You know, it's great. I absolutely love the very beginning of this movie. And what's really funny is, I want you guys to touch on this, the first 20 minutes of the movie, we haven't even gotten to the two main stars of the movie.
Yep.
They're not even in it yet. And for the first 20 minutes of this movie. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I noticed that too. It takes a while.
Yeah, we don't even get there yet. And of course, once the ship is taken over by Darth Vader and the Empire, 3PO and R2 are given the plans by Princess Leia, which we see, and they get into a what do they call it? Escape pod, and they jettison down to Tatooine. Now, this is the one area I will say this, and maybe I'm nitpicking here. When they jettison, and the guy goes, there goes another one. He says, "Hold your fire. There's no life forms." Imagine if he had just shot that in the first place. We wouldn't even have this story.
Right, it's true. Well, I said to Dad, we were talking yesterday. I said to Dad, I'm like, man, those stormtroopers are so stupid. And those guys are so stupid too.
It's funny. I love the fact that they're like that. I mean, you know, you want to be able to have somebody you can outwit, I guess, because you certainly can't outwit Darth Vader or Grand Moff Tarkin for sure.
They're like the wacky races. Like they try and like hit you or try and cause trouble, and they just never succeed, or they do something bad to themselves.
It's true.
Like there's so many scenes in this movie, which we'll get to, in which the stormtroopers show how silly they are.
Absolutely. Cargo, thank you for that. Yes, folks, please, for sure, this is a family-friendly stream. Please keep language to be respectful of everybody. Definitely want to keep it PG in here so that we have children who I'm sure might be watching, and we want to make sure we keep it family-friendly for everybody. So thank you for that. Christie's Corner, welcome in as well. I appreciate you being here, and I apologize if I missed anybody. Zip, welcome in. Zip, love your video a little bit earlier today.
Keep it family-friendly out there. What are you guys doing? Come on.
Yeah, no. But then from there,
people are getting excited in the chat. I think that's awesome.
I know.
People are passionate about this movie. Gosh, like stormtroopers.
Yeah, people, and that's a cool thing. I think they're getting passionate about Princess Leia, and they really are. And it was funny because I think we're going to talk about this too. I went to Star Wars Launch Bay on opening day, and I learned a lesson that day. I went in there, and I'm like, it was so cool. I did go, I think 2015, December 1st. I went there. It was opening day. I got lucky. And the opening movie, they show all Star Wars stuff and everything. And I had a little girl sitting next to me, and I'm like, she ain't gonna know Star Wars. And sure enough, she was so passionate about the princesses and Princess Leia and the cartoons and everything. So it really shows how what a monumental movie. If starting from this movie, how everyone just loves it, how passionate people get about Princess Leia. You know, girls, boys, young kids, older people. It's a great thing. It really is.
Yep. Take care, Dougie. Thank you for being here, Dougie. Guys.
See you, pal.
Bye, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. But so now, once the kind of moving on in that first act, we start to really move forward with the story a little bit as R2 and 3PO land on Tatooine. And of course, they, like you said, Dan, they're like like a married couple. They kind of argue, and one goes one way and one goes the other way. And of course, then they are captured by the Jawas in separate instances and taken to I'm going to call it the ranch, the farm, what have you.
Can I just quickly just butt in and say this kind of tiny little bit between them getting out of the pod and them going to the ranch? When I was a child, I always felt this like tiny little like transition scenes were like 40 minutes long. Like it just felt
me too.
so long. Like they're just walking through the desert and they interact with some Jawas and like you're waiting for the Jawas to go, and then that's it. Like this, it just felt so long. And then when I rewatch, I'm just like, oh, okay, like it's actually not as long as I thought it'd be. It's like, and then R2 is like falls on his face. And I'm just waiting for that little like jumps, like kind of like a jump scare where the Jawa just pops up.
Right.
That's a great point, man. I noticed that. I watched it last night. Walt watched it today, I believe.
Yes.
Dan's watched some of it today too. And a lot happens in a little bit of time. Like it really flies by when you see like the movie. And you're right. And I agree with you. That scene seems like it took forever. Like when
it's kind of like you're so thrown into all this action, right? And then it kind of just like mellows down really dramatically. Like it just goes like pew 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 on the spaceship, and then and then bang, and then we're back on the ranch. Like it's weird. Like the tone changes really dramatically, which I think is I just found it a little weird when I was younger.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's really great because ultimately it gets us to where we finally meet the guy. This is the guy that the entire saga is about. His family, his saga. But we don't know that yet, obviously. But this is where we meet at the farm. We meet Uncle Owen, Aunt Beru, and, of course, Luke Skywalker for the first time. And, Rob, you touched on this. The score for this movie is probably one of the greatest scores ever made. And it blends so well with all these scenes. But this is where we finally get our first glimpse of Luke Skywalker. And I think for me, I see it more now, just how young he's made out to be in this role.
And whiny.
Yeah, but I think how old is he in this? 17? Is he supposed to be a teenager?
He was meant to be like an elder teenager, young adult kind of thing, because he wants to be independent.
Right.
Like it's like that classic whiny line is like, I wanted to go to the Tashi station to pick some power converters.
Right.
I'm just like,
I made a note of that because it's just funny.
I'm just like, you're so whiny. Just get on with your job, and then you can go later. And just he's meant to be.
As a father, and Rob, hopefully you know this. I have a 23 and an 18-year-old. I can relate because I have the same ones who say, I just want to go upstairs and play on my computer. So I get it.
His uncle's being fair. Next season, it's only one season. He's trying to reason with him. It's only one season.
One season, though. I mean, a season's a long time. It's a whole another year, as Luke says. But that's a long time. But we finally get it, and I do think that they really want to portray Luke to be. He is young. He is immature, but he also wants to find his purpose in life, and he knows deep down that this isn't where he's supposed to be. And we get there later on. So, of course, from there, R2 outsmarts him a little bit and runs off. And when they go to get him, they meet up with the Sand People, which I want to touch on them in a minute too. And they kind of get the better of Luke, and then he's saved by the one and only ObiWan Kenobi, played by the incredible.
Yeah, he's awesome.
God bless him. He is. They could not have picked a better person. The incredible Alec Guinness, who really kind of lifts this movie to another level with him in it. Him and Peter Cushing, but that's another story. We'll get into. And what do you guys think of that whole area, that whole part of the movie, in your opinion? Rob, what do you think as we finally meet Luke and the Sand People? And
it's kind of funny because you said if they just shot them in the pond, it would have never happened. Like if that red robot worked, the movie would have never happened, but he did. So R2-D2 moves on. So if he didn't run away and you're looking for him, it would have, the movie would have never happened. If the Sand People didn't attack him, and Obi-Wan Kenobi possibly found him, maybe they would have never found him. But that's what happens with this movie. There's a lot, and I noticed it last night. There's a lot of little happenstances, is that a word? Circumstances that lead to the movie. And that's what's great about it, I think. So it's a little wonky, it's a little strange. And but it's like he's amazing, the character. And the spoiler alert here, he's not really in the movie that much. He really isn't. Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? He's just not in the movie that much.
Well, he's definitely in the middle part of the movie for sure.
Yeah, but he's just, you know, but for that main character and like what a legend he is and everything, he just, I wish I always wanted more Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he's amazing. He's such a cool character. But don't forget, you know, Dan, you don't know this prequel stuff. You don't know the story. You don't know all the stuff about him and Darth Vader. You don't know it all. So it's amazing.
We don't know what Jedi is. We don't know what this robed guy.
Yeah, right.
Like, yeah, and they even call like they even say like the Force and the Jedi and all that stuff is like it's just like it's like taboo kind in the movie. So.
Right, but they do. But he explained. I think when they're in, and Dan, I'll let you go in just a second here, and we're going to go over that. And by the way, Two Real Geeks, you're right. It's Tusken Raiders, Sand People. Tusken Raiders are their formal name.
Right.
But I think the 15 seconds where Obi-Wan is sitting there talking to Luke, he explains the Force and he gets into the backstory, which we'll get into too, of all of it. And he can do all that in like a minute. But Dan, what about you? What do you think of the whole when we first meet Obi-Wan, first meet Luke area in there?
Yeah, you know, I think it's a very interesting part of the movie because, Luke is with his, aunt and uncle who are supportive of him, but want to keep him safe. And, they obviously know, some sort of backstory about him. Obviously, we don't know at the time. And, they just want to keep him on the farm pretty much because, essentially they know about, Vader being, Luke's father. So to meet somebody like Obi-Wan who is pretty much not like that and be like, just wants to support Luke and teach him and just look after him as like a guardian angel kind of thing. It's quite interesting. And, I do find it kind of weird when the Tusken Raiders do attack and knock Luke out. And then when he starts to recover and Obi-Wan's there and he forgets that R2-D2 is his droid, because obviously R2 was Obi-Wan's droid at some point. During the Clone Wars, etc., and it was Anakin's droid. That kind of was a bit weird now looking back on all the other movies, but obviously we didn't know that at that in 1977 or
that's an inconsistency.
Yeah.
Later on, I don't blame that on the 77 movie. I blame on the prequels of him not being consistent.
Yeah, no, I that's the only thing that looking back on it now, it kind of is weird, but. I think you couldn't have cast anyone better than Alec Guinness. And I think I read somewhere that Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford, like to have a joke around on set, but then they would start acting serious when Alec Guinness was on set because obviously he was a big time actor. He's been on movies on like The Bridge Over the River Kwai. Like he's been on big movies. So obviously Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford wanted to, act more professional around him.
It's respect.
Yeah, who were pretty much unknowns.
Yeah, at the time, yeah.
What wasn't Han Solo? Wasn't he like a carpenter's line?
Harrison Ford. And please correct me, anybody in the chat, if I'm not mistaken. Harrison Ford was in American Graffiti before he did Star Wars, and that's kind of what put him on the map for George Lucas. Right. You're right; he was working as a carpenter, but he had done American Graffiti before he tested for this role. Yes, you're right. They both were pretty much unknowns. Now, Carrie Fisher, of course, her mother, everybody knew who her mom was and who her dad was. But if I'm not mistaken, was the Blues Brothers before or after Star Wars?
She was. Blues Brothers was before, I believe.
Before.
Okay. So then she also was she had gotten actually, I think, her start there as well. So you're right. All of them were not what you would call famous, well-known, everyday actors and actresses for sure. Yeah. But I love this part of the movie. It starts to get us to learn about these characters, where they're from, their history. We learn about the Force. Like he says, it's an energy field that binds and surrounds the galaxy and, binds it all together. He talks about the Jedis and how they were defeated. And then he kind of tells a little bit of a fib to Luke. when he says his father was betrayed and murdered by Darth Vader. Of course, we didn't know at the time that was a fib, but I guess it really was a fib, right. Which I think is kind of neat too. But if you really look at his face, you could tell he's fibbing to him. He's kind of lying to him when he tells him that. When he tells him that his dad was.
You didn't know at the time, though.
No, not at all. No, you didn't know exactly what it was. But if you look at his face, he kind of hesitates, and he's like, "But."
And that's kind of scene right there only empowers the scene in Empire, which we'll talk about next month, because you know that pretty much tells everybody that Obi-Wan was wrong. Like Obi-Wan lied, and obviously that does have an effect on the next movie in Empire. When well, I'm not going to give away the spoiler, but it's been like 40 years. You should know what happens in the end anyway. But you know, it's again, though I do feel like in a Jedi kind of way, he's telling the truth, because it's kind of like the inner like evil essentially taking over Anakin. So, and that inner evil could be considered Vader. Yeah, well, so I think in a Jedi way, he's kind of saying, you know, yeah.
I think he had to say what he had to say to get Luke to that point.
Sure, and not only that, he actually explains that in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
he does. He explains that in Return of the Jedi why he said that, because Luke calls him out on it. And we'll get to that when we get there.
Yep.
But now we get to the part, of course, at this point, the stormtroopers have come down off the ship. They've been following them, trying to find the droids. And this is where we finally see what I consider to be very sad. And that's where the stormtroopers trace the droids back to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. And Luke doesn't get there in time, and they're gone. They've been murdered by the stormtroopers. And Luke now decides that there's nothing left for him there, and he's going to head out with Obi-Wan to Alderaan and maybe learn the ways of the Force. What do you guys think of that part of the movie? Rob?
Very dark.
Yeah, real quick, I wanted to mention too, before he meets Obi, like him seeing those two moons and the score, like you said, Will, like I think that's my favorite scene of the whole movie. When he's looking out and you see Luke, just that profile shot, he's looking at the two moons and everything.
That's great.
Kind of. You know something's going to happen to him.
Yep.
So then,
but that also mirrors The Last Jedi, though. Remember, that mirrors The Last Jedi, so which I think is amazing.
And that's like a lot of the parts with Last Jedi. That's why I like it too, because of that. But then fast forward a little bit, because you see him looking at the moon and then coming to here, and then you're talking about when they go discover that his parents, his aunt and uncle are been killed, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is very touching. It kind of, you know, you saw him whining about he wanted to go to school and everything. Now his feet kind of just was kind of sealed for him. He has nothing left there. Let's move on. And I love that land speeder. And like we talked about too, as I watch this movie, the Jawa Sandcrawler, I had that toy. I had the land speeder toy. All I think about is the toys and the fun I had as a kid. I just wanted to mention that too. So
I agree.
Seeing the lightsaber, you see the land speeder here for the first time, which is amazing too. He jets off, and that's what he sees and everything. I actually have the movie playing here, so the look on his face, the look of everything, it's very touching. It's very amazing, and I love the way the story's told. You know, his aunt and uncle are dead. It's kind of like a revenge, kind of, you know. And I kind of, at the time, maybe I was a kid and everything, I never kind of thought of it revenge, and I just thought of it now, actually. That really sets his piece, the way it built everything up, so from the start.
What about you, Dan?
It's a very dark moment. And I think, especially with, like, you know, something you don't... I feel like with something like that, you don't really expect to see the skeletons of Aunt Peru and Uncle Owen, like crawling out of their hut. Like, it's kind of like it goes to that new level of, you know, cinema in a way that they are, you know, hinting at some sort of, you know, this is really horrific. Instead of having their house on fire, they went to the full, like, you can actually, without, you know, telling us through voice, Aunt Peru and Uncle Owen are dead. They actually show us. They show us the skeletons, and I think that's really powerful. And you can see that in Luke's face. You can see that in his eyes. And, you know, I think going back to see Obi and saying, like, you know, he has nothing left, he only really had one other option. you know, his people who are meant to look after him to prevent Darth Vader from finding him are gone. He now needs to go with Obi-Wan to save, you know, Leia. So that's it's kind of it's a small scene, but a very important scene.
Yeah, and it's what it does. It really shows the length that the Empire will go to get what they want, and they will torture whoever they have to, because it looks as if they didn't die quickly. It looks like they really tortured them to get what they want, and we finally start to see just how evil this Empire really, really is, and to the lengths of what they'll go. I agree 100%. It's one of the darker, for this movie, maybe the darkest scene we get in the entire thing. But it's definitely a dark one for sure.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
a good point for this movie. That's a good point.
Yes, for this movie, I think for A New Hope. And then from there, this is where we finally comes back to Obi-Wan, and they go to Mos Eisley, and this is where we really start to jumpstart the movie, because we finally meet probably the most charismatic character in all of Star Wars lore, in my opinion. I don't think anybody has more charisma, maybe as much, but not more, than finally meeting up with the man himself, Han Solo, and his counterpart. It's almost like Buzz and Woody, but it started with Chewie, and Han and Chewie were before Buzz and Woody. And it's just, you know, talk about your buddy romances, your bromances. This is one of them right there. But we finally get to meet. We have the Mos Eisley Cantina scene, and we meet Han Solo and Chewbacca as they, you know, we meet them for the first time. Rob, what do you think of that whole scenario and those scenes right there?
Yeah. As we're talking, I'm playing it on my other monitor. At 45 minutes it took to get to that scene, so I'm watching. So, and another point too is this is right before this scene too. They have a lot of extra animation and a lot of stuff with the dewbacks and a lot of different aliens and stuff like that. That whole scene, which I'll be honest with you, I don't know what you felt about it, Walt, but I like the enhancements. I think, you know, in 1990, you know, in the 90s and everything, when they started introducing these stuff, and you know, 2019 now, I think it's a welcome thing with the restoration and seeing the added dewbacks and the aliens and stuff like that. Come on. Boom, like the best theme ever. Come on, that is Star Wars right there. That you see, we're talking about the bar scene now, right? We're getting into this.
Yeah, the cantina.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Seeing the band, seeing the aliens, are like, oh my god, look at like this. The guy's jiggled his tooth. Like this is like there's robots in there, there's aliens. This is like holy cow. And then you see mixed in there the scum and like the way they describe it, and they don't want to go in there, and they scare you that they're going in there and everything. Like, what's gonna happen to these guys and everything? It's just like your mind is blown. It's just, I don't need to talk about too much here, but it just seeing Darth Vader, you know, was one thing. It was amazing, but seeing Han Solo and Chewbacca for the first time was just that's just my favorite part, I think, of the movie right there, going into this scene and everything. And I think they try to emulate in other movies the bar scene and everything, but come on, it's amazing.
Nothing
it's
like
just incredible. So yeah, it's just so cool. It's just such a cool part of the movie.
I agree 100%. Dan, what about you, buddy?
There's a great scene on the there's a parody of A New Hope done by Family Guy, and one of the scenes they go into the cantina and they play the song like and they finish the song, and then they cut to the band. They go, right, all right, we are the Cantina Band. We're gonna be all night. Like, if anybody has any recommendations of songs, shout them out. And then the same guy goes, play the same song. All right, same song. Here we go. And it's so funny. But you know, it's great. And you know, even before we meet Han Solo, like, no droids are allowed in this thing. The bar guy was like, they're droids. We don't serve them here. And you know, R2 and have to leave outside. Mm-hmm. And then you've got these two guys, these two literally I could literally describe them as scum and villainy. Where he goes, he doesn't like you. Sorry, I don't like you either. I've been convicted on 12 systems, and
I got the death sentence on 12 systems.
Yeah, just like, who are these losers? Like, and then Obi-Wan's just like, Alec Guinness, the sly guy that he goes, so it's like, hey, you don't want to trouble him. Now let me buy you something. And he was just like ripping him apart. And then he gets his lightsaber out and then bang, he cuts off his arm. And I'm just like, this is so cool. And then everyone's going back to like, it's great.
Which just goes to show you that they probably had that happen 1,000 times.
The band does play a second song, by the way, which is actually really good too. What did you hear? But they do play 2 songs. But Dan, I'm dying laughing when you told that
it's just like I think as a child, I never appreciated this scene because as a child, I don't think you really get what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as you watch it in more adult eyes, and just like, this is hysterical. Like you're literally in a bar of aliens who are the scum and villainy of Mos Eisley, and you got these buffoons called scum and villainy, trying to just not liking Luke for no reason. You got R2 and C-3PO now hiding from stormtroopers. Like everyone is all getting a little tense, and I really quite like it. And then obviously you meet Chewie and Han, and then he's just sly, isn't he? He's just like this sly smuggler, and he's just really cool about it. It's just like, I can, my Millennium Falcon, is the fastest ship in the galaxy. Like, it's great. I think it's a really great scene.
The famous line, Dan.
You're putting me on the spot.
You made the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs.
Yeah, there you go.
Love it.
I'm telling you, I can quote. Hey, I want to bring this up because this is one of the best scenes in all of Star Wars. I agree with you both 100%. But what's the one thing we really haven't ranted on yet in this movie? Dialogue. Dialogue.
Mm.
The screenplay itself, the wording, the acting. You know why? Because it's been really, really good. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. It's in this scene. The banter between Luke and Han sitting at the table when they are negotiating is actually done really, really well. He says to him, what's the cargo? Myself, the boy, and 2 droids, and no questions asked. And he goes, what is it? Some kind of local trouble? And Obi-Wan says, well, let's just say we don't want to have any Imperial entanglements. And Han says, well, that's the trick, and it's going to cost you $10,000 all in advance. And what's Luke say? 10,000?
10,000, yeah.
We can almost buy our own ship for that. And he goes, yeah, but who's going to fly it, kid? You? And he goes, you bet I could. We don't have to sit here. And Obi-Wan just kind of sits him down. It's great. I'm sorry, but I just think the dialogue. Look, we always criticize George Lucas for the prequels and the dialogue and how terrible we think it is. He did a really good job with it on this. I don't know if he was the screenplay writer or not.
You compare that, right? You compare that to I don't like sand. It's coarse, rough, and irritating, and it gets everywhere. I'm just like, what happened, dude?
Right. But I mean, he so knocked it out of the park. It just made sense. It's the way people would talk. It's just like, who's gonna fly it, kid? You? Yeah, you bet I could. It was just done really. And then he's like, when they leave, he goes, 17,000 men. They must really be desperate. Go get the ship ready.
It's so good. It's just that AD of it. Yes. So good.
Yeah, and then
that's Han Solo. That's him.
Yeah, it is him. It's exactly who he is. And then, of course, we have the Greedo scene.
Greedo shot first.
No, he did not. No, he did not. And that's what made Han Solo an edgy character, is the fact that he would shoot first. He would shoot first if he had to. He didn't care. At least at first he didn't. I love the Greedo scene. Rob, what about you?
I love it. I have it on now. I'm watching it, so it's great. I love that character growing up too. Of course, I had every single action figure. I even let's jump ahead a little. I even have this guy right here. I love him. Yeah. I love the action figures and everything. And whenever I watch the movies, I think of all the different droids, all the different aliens, all the different figures and everything. I had them all, and I had him, and I just love it. It's such a great. The lighting is perfect. That's what makes this movie kind of timeless. A lot of the lighting and the practical sets and everything just look phenomenal. The dialogue is amazing, like you said. Everything, I agree with everything. He's just so laid back. He's sitting there. He's his foot up, and you see what you kind of you dig this guy instantly, and then you see, this guy has an edge. He's killing aliens and everything, getting out of there. So then it's just it's
the line where he goes, you think I have a choice? And he starts to raise his gun out of his holder.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Really
like, oh, it's
same.
about to go down right now. Like one of these guys is going to die. And we all know who it's going to be. And even like you said, with the dialogue, you got Greedo speaking, he's not speaking English. And even his lines are great. Like, you owe Jabba this amount of money. There's no hiding. Like, it's like really, it's really great writing despite him not actually speaking English.
Right. And well, yeah, no, it's true. And he says to him, he's like, well, tell Jabba I got the money. And he goes, well, give it to me and maybe I'll tell him I never saw you. It's great lines. And talking about what Rob touched on, the differences in the enhancements when they brought the movies back out compared to the original. Kay Atwood was talking about different parts of the movie that were added, deleted scenes. There was a deleted scene when they came to the ship where Jabba the Hutt did actually talk to Han Solo. That was a deleted scene that they added in. That was not in the originals.
It was with a guy. It was this big tubby guy, wasn't it?
I guess.
It was.
Yeah. He acted with he looked like one of those Imperial guards, like just a big chubby guy, like a burlap outfit. Like, it was a very bizarre thing. And I do have an issue with this scene. I really do. If there's an issue, I'm gonna have it with this scene. So I don't want to bring it down, but it's very bizarre. And I just didn't think it needed to be there. And I don't think they needed to add it, but it's cool. Like this Jabba's like, from this Jabba to the Return of the Jedi. I love the Return of the Jedi job, but this one's just a little strange. I don't know.
I feel like they could have, really gone more into detail with, how much debt Han Solo is without showing him interact with the ones who he's trying to deal with. Like, he could have like messages come up on his computer or in the ship, or he would have like some guy trying to snipe him or something that's serious than just meeting this fake Jabba, and I think you're right, Rob. I think it does feel a little bit out of place, but you do get introduced with one of the coolest characters in the whole of Star Wars, and that's Boba Fett.
Sure. I think, go ahead, Rob.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's cool. I dig it, but I just don't think it needed to be there. So, like, you're watching it now, it's just totally like it just doesn't fit like the rest of the Star Wars. It's really noticeable that was added. So,
and for me, all of these scenes, especially that one, it's forced and it's unnecessary. We understand after he talks to Greedo, he owes Jabba the Hutt a lot of money. End of story. Because he's got bounty hunters all over the galaxy looking for him. And so to add that, I thought it was redundant from what we just talked about when they talked to Greedo. We knew he owed him money. I don't like the enhancements at all in any of the movies, for me personally. But I'm a traditionalist. You guys know that. I thought they didn't need to be there. And this scene with Jabba, to me, I didn't think they needed it at all. But that's just my opinion on it. But let's go from there. Now, of course, they know they're go ahead, Rob.
And that's where you see this guy right here. I'm just watching the scene. He's
not
in the movie much. You just see him right there.
I don't know. But here's my thing. I'm wondering if that was added. I don't even know that he was in there initially.
Well, that whole scene's not there. Part of that.
It's not. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. I mean, I again, it's just an addition that I wasn't a big fan of. But then finally, they get on the ship. The stormtroopers are coming after them. They do get away. And this is where we finally start to see, they're going to Alderaan because that's where they need to go. And then they kind of pan back to the Death Star because remember, Princess Leia has been captured. We haven't even really gone back to her. And she's on the Death Star, and they've been trying to extract the information of where these plans are to no avail. And this is where we finally get to really meet Grand Moff Tarkin and get into his character as they think of another persuasive way to get her to reveal where the rebel base is by destroying her home planet. And this is where we finally get a test of how powerful the Death Star really, really is. I really think this is a great scene as well. And I want to touch on that scene with you guys. Rob, what about you, buddy? What do you think of that kind of interaction with Leia, Vader, Grand Moff Tarkin there?
Real quick, like every time I watch the movie, I notice something different. And when they're going on the Millennium Falcon for the first time here, and they're getting on, R2-D2's walking down the stairs, which I've never seen him walk downstairs ever. And right there, he walks downstairs, which is very bizarre. I've never noticed that before.
but it's authentic. I like that. I mean, how else
it's
is he
kind of
gonna
cool.
get down the steps?
Yeah, definitely very cool. But and you're seeing inside the Millennium Falcon for the first time, which I fell in love with them all. This ship right here, I have a bunch of the models and everything. I just love it. And that scene with Princess Leia and everything, it's intense. It really is cool. And you don't even really know. You don't know they're on the Death Star at that point. Did they even say they're on the Death Star? Do you even know? Like,
I think we know it.
But you don't know what it looks like, though. Obviously. So it just, I don't know. It's very intense. God, Dan could do this much better justice than me. The scene and Walt, of course.
It's just intense.
Yeah.
That's what really comes to mind. Just like you already know Leia is a very strong woman because how she approached Vader at the start of the movie. And you still don't see her backing down against Tarkin either. Even though he's threatening her with her planet. And she goes to a point to even lie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like you kind of see that little bit of weakness. And as soon as she lies, Tarkin's like, we've got you now. Like, we can see some weakness in you. And bang, Alderaan goes. Tarkin is just cool as you like. Just level-headed. And Vader's there as the bodyguard, pretty much.
Yeah, he's kind of like the bouncer. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the muscle.
It feels like Tolkien is the emperor in this movie. That's what it feels like. It feels like Tolkien is the Tarkin.
I know what you meant.
Not Tolkien. Tarkin is like the big baddie in this movie, I feel.
Yeah, that was my point before.
And I told this to Melissa today. I've always said, in my opinion, when you did the rank and file for the Empire, the Emperor was number 1. The Governor, Grand Moff Tarkin, was number 2.
Yeah.
Because in the movie, Vader answers to Grand Moff Tarkin. When he tells him to do something, he does it. Vader release him. And he talks to him and he does these different things. I think that you're right. I think he's definitely the bad. I think Vader's the muscle and becomes the big bad as the movies go on. But you're right. Grand Moff Tarkin, what a great character. And Peter Cushing, another great actor to get the role to play such a minor role. But oh my gosh, it was fantastic. And I love that scene with him and Leia. And, he's there and he's like, I grow tired of asking this question, so I ask it one last time. Where's the rebel base? And he backs her into Vader, and it's like she's like backed into a corner, literally. It's fantastic.
I love Walt knows all the lines. It's so awesome.
I do, man. I'm telling you, I know.
It's so cool.
The originals, I know like the back of my hand. It's just, and
he's not a CGI either. So, as you discussed last show,
we were trying to go the whole day, the whole stream without doing a Dan rant. Don't push it.
You don't
Rob.
have to talk about it. But I wanted. Sorry.
I think that's one of the things that makes this movie so great is the fact that we don't have CGI in this movie. These are practical effects. These are real sets.
And you know what? When you see like TIE fighters fly across the Death Star and stuff like that, and the Star Destroyers, they often look better than what you get CGI today.
Right,
because they're practical effects. They're practical effects. The actual figures you have in front of you, rather than CGI stuff, which you can almost get to what you want, but never to what you imagine. A figure is right in front of your face.
Mm-hmm.
The Millennium Falcon flying around in a lot of scenes, weren't great. They just weren't compared.
But that was because of its time, I feel.
Stuff. Yeah, because of 100%. Yeah, because of the time, but. You gotta kind of remember, like I always talk about Jaws and the restoration, how amazing it looks. This and the restoration looks just incredible. But you gotta remember it was made in the 70s. So
yeah,
but it stands the test of time. It definitely does.
Yeah, absolutely. But it stands the test of time because I think for back then, first of all, we didn't know any better, and we're like, holy mackerel, how do they do this?
Right.
It's like this is amazing, but. Right. What really helps it is it's just the story itself really carries everything about it and the acting. But and of course from there, this is where we really start to get the relationship between Han and Luke really start to take off here as they're on the Death Star. They're really not there for Princess Leia. They're there because they got trapped chasing a ship and they have to get out. So they go to try to turn off the tractor beam. and then they find out Princess Leia is actually there, and they decide to go and try and get her.
That's no moon, Walt. That's no
amazing.
Moon.
I know, it's
Amazing.
But again, talk about great acting. It sounds like a funny line, but it's not. It's like he says, "Turn the ship around." That's simple. It's like, but it's true. Turn the ship around. And he's like, "Yeah,
you're right.
I think you're right." it's just great lines, and they just really hit it out of the park with this. Dan, what do you think?
I just love, as soon as they arrive on the Death Star, and they're like, "What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? We're gonna fight our way out of this." And they go into the cargo hold kind of thing,
right?
Underneath, and how they trick the stormtroopers in, and become stormtroopers as a disguise, I thought was brilliant. I did not see that coming when I was a child. I'm like, when I saw this, I was like, "Oh my god, Luke and Han are stormtroopers. This is so cool." And I'm like, it's really not that cool, but it's pretty cool that you got these two guys who take off their helmets and it's Luke and Han. I'm just like, this is. And then you got like one of them like waving to each other, and it's great.
Guys, stupid people on the show.
Yeah,
hey, can you give me a hand with this?
Funny. What I don't understand though is they hear the shooting on the ship. Why doesn't no one else? You got all these like stormtroopers that are lined up in front of the Millennium Falcon, right? When Vader's there, and then they start putting the scanners and stuff in, and then obviously Han shoots them. How come none of the other stormtroopers that are outside, not here?
Well, I think Rob's
firing.
But I think Rob's right. I think by that time, the majority of them left. It was just the two scanners and two stormtroopers left. I don't think all the others that were lined up were still there, because you're right. Then it doesn't make sense. It's like, you didn't hear that? Why didn't you go up in there? I think they were the only two left, because the two scanners went up first.
Yeah.
And they get beat up. You don't hear the gunfire until the two stormtroopers go up. And so I agree with you. I mean, I would think if others were around, they should have heard that.
And I love the fact we don't see the fighting.
Right.
I like the fact we just hear it. And I think it's brilliant how they do that. They hear them beating up the engineers, and then they shoot the guys, and you don't know what's really going on until you see Han and Luke take off their helmets when they get to the control room. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool. I love that scene. It's
Welcome into Myers and the Mouse. Thank you for being here. And Meg,
hey Meg.
Good to see you. Thank you for being here. We are already an hour into this, and we're about halfway through. We got ways to go, guys.
We're all right.
But I agree, and this is where finally we get. It's so funny. We really start to get banter between Luke and Han when we get into, like you said, the little cargo area after they finally get up inside, and he's like, making all this noise between his growling and your shooting. It's a wonder none of them know we're here yet. And he's like, well, bring them on. I prefer all this fighting than sneaking around. And it's just great banter between him and Luke. And then Obi-Wan leaves, and he looks at Chewie, and he goes, where did you dig up this old father? And he goes, Ben is a great man. And he goes, yeah, great at getting us in trouble.
That's a great line. I love on the ship, too, a little rewinding. Them playing chess, Luke training as a Jedi with
yes, I skipped right over that. I'm sorry, but you're right.
Well, it's all right. They're just great scenes. They really are. I didn't want to forget those.
Yeah, no, it's all part of the character development. That you're right. I kind of glossed right by it, and I apologize, but you're right. I mean, we see Luke finally starting to learn some training. We get a little backstory of Han Solo because he doesn't believe in the Force.
Yet.
That's exactly right. Not yet. But I just love the parts on the Death Star. It's my favorite part of the movie, other than the end. But I do like the fact that they're there, and then they find out Princess Leia is there. And then they decide, Luke decides, and Han kind of goes along with it, that they should go get her instead of sitting around. What do you guys think of that scene when they go down to the detention center?
Yeah, well, go on, Rob. I'll let you go, buddy.
Yeah, go ahead. That's cool.
I just find it kind of like how, they make their way to the detention hall. You got these two stormtroopers who clearly don't know where they're going. They got a massive Wookiee with them it kind of does like it does look blatantly obvious. Who if you know this is what comes to mind when I think of stormtroopers. They are a little bit dumb because you would assume you'd know that these two don't belong there, especially with a Wookiee. And they get to the detention hall and they're like, "Where are you taking this thing? Like cell 113A, blah 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 blah." And it's like, "I wasn't notified. I'll have it cleared. I'll have it cleared, whatever." And then all hell breaks loose. Like everything goes crazy. Like they start shooting these panels on the wall, and they shoot these like guys and blah blah blah. And Han is on the radio, is just like, negative. Like everything is okay. It's a weapons malfunction. I'm just like, this guy is just
and shoots the speaker.
He's like, I don't have time for this. Like, and he's like, "Luke, we got company." And I'm just like, oh god, everything is just going crazy from there. And we'll wait till we talk about Luke and Leia for a sec. But I think just the build up from like everything is so calm going down to the detention hall, and then bang, like everyone starts shooting. Luke and Han are shooting panels on the wall, and you got these guys doing dramatic like falls and stuff to their deaths. It's great. Like it's really great stuff.
I agree. Rob, what do you think, buddy?
It's amazing. It's a great scene. I'm just watching it again here, and Princess Leia has the gun shooting as well. It's just such a great scene. Like just the interaction for the first time, that whole banter. I think it starts there too, or between Han Solo and Princess Leia. That whole
absolutely
thing and everything. And I never even noticed the lines like, "Yeah, you think a princess would fall for me?" And Luke's like, "No." I think it's along the lines there too. It's kind of funny.
You're a little short to be a stormtrooper.
Oh yeah,
come on. They jump in. Go ahead.
It's true. No, it's true, 100%. Well, what's funny is when they get down there, it's like you said. Where are you taking this thing? And he goes, "Prisoner transfer from cell block 1138." And then when all heck breaks loose, remember they're shooting cameras. Is basically what they're shooting on the walls. Yeah. Those are cameras so nobody can see what they're doing down there. But the scene with Han Solo when he gets on the radio and he's like, negative. We got a leak down here. Don't come down here. No, don't bring anybody. We're fine. How are you? Yeah. but it's you want him to stumble. That's the point. Is he doesn't know what to say.
They're so out of their depth. And you know what I really love? As soon as like stuff started breaking down, the long tunnel. I've always wondered what's at the end of that tunnel.
I know.
Because I was just like, what is out there? Is it space? Is it like a cafeteria?
Nothing.
Is it bread service? What is it? I don't know what it is.
You know what, Dan? I think it's an exclusive here. At the end of the tunnel is bread service. You cracked it. You got it. So I think it is.
Great. Stormtroopers live off bread. Actually, no, they don't. They're not smart enough to live off bread service.
No,
but speaking of silly stormtroopers, they blast through the elevator, and like there's this little like step that hadn't been blown off, and this stormtrooper just falls over and he dies just falling over, and he's just like lying there, and then all the stormtroopers have to climb over him to get out of the elevator. It's great. Oh, it's so funny.
That's one of my favorite things about you, Dan. You notice stuff like that. I never noticed anything like that.
So funny.
Well, but Rob, you touched on it. The banter between them again. It's how people would talk. I mean, when they get there and it's like she's like, "Some rescue. Did you have a plan for getting us out?" And it's like, it's true. I mean, you blocked off the only way there. And then when she jumps into the trash compactor, Chewie's waiting and he's like, "Get in there. I don't care what you smell. Get in there. We got to get out of here." And he looks over at Luke and he's like, "Wonderful girl. Either I'm going to kill her or I'm beginning to like her." It's true, but it's like he's so frustrated and so mad. He's like, it's just great. The screenplay in this, it's probably the best of all the movies, maybe then the next one.
Yeah.
But again, as a kid, I had the Death Star toy, and I had the trash compactor, and you would squeeze it up and everything, and the actual lizard monster was in it too. So I love seeing that scene.
Can I talk about this lizard thing? Mm-hmm. This felt like the Jawa scene. Like it just felt so like elongated, and just really quite just like, when is this thing going to attack Luke? Like, it was just like really quite unnecessary. I don't know. I just didn't really. Obviously, the compacting, yes, that's important because that brought up the tension. But this whole like lizard thing that lived in the trash compactor, I thought was really quite weird.
I loved it.
I loved it too. I thought it was like
that's what made it cool.
Any worse? It was like, not only are they in a trash compactor, how are they going to get out? Then it's like he even says, you know, thank you for putting us down here. And she goes, well, it could be worse. And then they hear it roar, and he goes, it's worse.
Worse.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then it gets even worse because it starts to compact.
Yeah.
It's just like one obstacle after another. And when it pulls Luke down, again, lines that you would hear a normal person say, he's like, shoot it. And Han's like, where? He goes, anywhere. Just shoot it. And which that's what we would say. We would be
I just wanted him to be like really sarcastic. He was just like, just above the eye, near the ear. No, anywhere, you idiot.
It's like, anywhere. Just shoot it. I don't care. Great lines. And you're right. The trash compactor scene is such a great it's a great scene. Rob, what do you think of the trash compactor scene?
I got it on no again. I keep talking about it. It's incredible. Like I said, as a kid, I used to emulate that scene over and over and over again with my toys. It's just great. You know, Chewie in there too, and he just like, he didn't want to get in and everything. It's great. And the rock star. You got to remember the rock star is R2D2. He has this little interface in this little thing. He's helping. He's trying to turn off the trash compactor and everything. And when C-3PO they finally turns it off, and you're screaming, it's like, oh my god, they're dying! Like they're so happy. They think he's died. Like C-3PO is the two best line, the two best characters with the best lines. Is that, come on, Han Solo and C-3PO. Like he could see be annoying for a bit, but his lines were just so good.
His lines
the banter between R2D2 and trying to help them, and the whole thing of them. It's just so good.
It's like when Luke like goes on the comms to him, and he goes, shut up and listen to me.
That's true. That's what I'm
like,
talking.
We're outside. He was like C3. I don't remember the exact line, but 3PO was just like, oh, we've had some trouble. Like we're outside the Millennium Falcon, and Luke's like, oh, shut up and listen to me. We're getting crushed. And I was just like, this is great. Like the tension is there. There's humor there, and like you got Han shouting at Leia, just like Han, and she's like, get on top of it. She goes, I'm trying.
That's true. That's what the dialogue in this movie is so down to earth. I mean, the one funny line he says is when he goes, well, one thing's for sure, we're all going to be a lot thinner.
Great line. It is so funny.
Such a great scene.
It really is. And then and then when they get out of the trash compactor, again, the dialogue between the characters is fantastic. And she goes, you know, I don't know, who you are or where you came from, but from here on out, you listen to me. And then she says, well, you get this walking carpet out of my way. And it's just so funny.
But then Han like goes, no reward deserves this. He just like, even him would go to a point where he doesn't feel like he's getting a reward for somebody who needs to pay off these debts. All of this, like, there's no, like, he just like, you'd rather just get out of there.
Oh, Myers and the Mouse makes a good point. They said they wonder how much of it was improv. That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe some of it was. Yeah. But it's true. I mean, just the back and forth is everybody flows well with everybody. Nothing ever seems forced. No pun intended when I say forced. But it really doesn't seem forced. Everybody just flows well and really interacts well together.
Such a short period of time too. And I just realized that last night. It's just like boom, 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 boom. This is going boom, 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 boom. This is awesome. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, it's a great flow. Well,
I agree. And of course, this whole time Obi-Wan is trying. He's trying to turn off the reactor, and he's successful at doing that. And then he finally gets to the point where he knows, his destiny is about to be realized.
It's such a bizarre place where he has to turn off this reactor, though. All the way on the cliff. Like, why is it up there? But it's great, though. You're right. Now, again, with my toy, they had it on the toy.
Yes.
He has to walk on the cliff. Yeah. It's got to be on the edge. All the sound effects are amazing, too.
One of my favorite things just after that is when, obviously, Han, Chewie break away from Leia and Luke.
He starts running after
He starts running, and then he goes into he shouts, he's like, and then he sees millions of stormtroopers and TIE fighters. He's like, and he just starts
in the original, in the original, all those millions of stormtroopers and TIE fighters are not there.
Weren't there, yeah. But
Yeah,
that's how
like
that's how I saw it though, as somebody
Right.
who's never seen the original. I'm just like, he's like really aggressive, and then he just sees everything, and you just see his facial expression change, and it's just brilliant. And this starts running back the other way, and it's like, open the blast door, open the blast door. Like it's so tense.
It's just there's so many different things. It's hard to touch on all the different little scenes. I mean, he goes in his direction. Well, Luke and Leia go in their direction, and they're being chased. And then they come to the end of the one bridge that's out, and they have to close the door, and there's no bridge. And you're thinking, how are they going to get across the bridge? And that whole scene is fantastic too. Touch on that, Rob. What do you think of that? It's a short scene, but I really like
everything's
it.
so short. And in your mind, you know, of course, come on, running like Han Solo. I emulated that scene as a kid. It's right. Like there's such great scenes, and they are really quick. And you know, in your mind, they last forever. Come on, the jumping over that span is just. There's a couple, like as I see too, there's a lot of scenes you see in recaps because you've seen so many different recaps, and there's just so many iconic scenes. Another scene where like Luke and Leia just look over and like they're like that. You've seen that scene a million times in recap videos and everything. And then there's them jumping over the what do you call it? Like the gap, whatever. It's incredible. Come on, it's so cool. It is just an iconic part of the movie and everything. As they're battling and everything, you know, like. It's cool.
Thank you, John.
One of my favorite scenes. Top 5 scenes right there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's one of my favorite. Again, it's so real because even though you have the stormtroopers shooting down at them, they're actually in the corner, coming out, in the corner, coming back out. It's just real. It's just really realistic. It's not, you're like, how are they missing them? Well, they're missing them because they're hiding behind the corner and they have to do it quickly. I really like the scenes. I think there's a lot of back and forth, but it's fantastic. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, just everything up until, you know, they get back on the Falcon, this whole scene back and forth. And then we're talking about Vader, right? Vader and Obi-Wan.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And we finally get to that scene where, you know, we know there's a history between Vader and Obi-Wan. We still really don't know a lot about it, but we understand that they do have history together. And this is where we get the big culmination of what I think kind of really sets Luke in his path. I think Obi-Wan knows what's coming. He understands it, and he's ultimately accepted it.
Yep.
But he has to have
it's that build-up, isn't that? Is you know, you see, you know, along the way between, you know, the Luke and Leia, the Han and Chewie stuff, you see, you know, Obi-Wan walking through the corridors. You see Darth Vader walking through the corridors. They're clearly looking for each other and building to it. So,
yeah.
Darth Vader senses Obi-Wan Kenobi when he lands on the ship.
Yeah.
And then even Obi-Wan, you know, we forgot to mention, like, when they blow up Princess Leia's planet. I don't think we mentioned that, but like he senses that, like Obi-Wan senses that. So like have that whole build up on it, and then they just come together, and it's just an amazing part of the movie.
I agree. And then we finally get to the scene, the big scene in the movie, and that's the Darth Vader Obi-Wan lightsaber battle. The first time we've ever seen a lightsaber battle. This is the first one. Of many to come, but this is the first one. And I know for a lot of people, they consider it to be the weakest of all of them. I think for the time, it was excellent. It's the first time I had ever seen it as a 7-year-old. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's great. Now, of course, special effects and choreography have gotten better over the years. And not only that, you were probably using the 80-year-old Alec Guinness to do a lot of this.
You got an 80-year-old Alec Guinness and a Tin Man. Yeah,
exactly.
Like it's very. They obviously didn't have things like carbon fiber suits or lightweight suits or something for Vader to move around quick. You know, they could have had a stunt actor to, you know, do Alec Guinness's movements, because it does feel like it reminds me a lot of in Revenge of the Sith, when Palpatine is doing his like movements. It's really. Yeah, compared to what they did in Empire and Return of the Jedi, it is very, very weak. But like you said, we have never seen this before. The only time we've seen some sort of lightsaber action was in the Cantina bar. That's it.
Right.
So I guess like I can forgive them because it's the first time we see it. But again, actually, there's a great thing on YouTube where they've redone it.
Someone talked about it in the chat. I've seen
it's so cool.
Rob, go see it if you've ever seen it.
Amazing.
It's a reenactment of that scene. It's amazing.
I'll send it to you. It's great.
Yep. Yumi and Betty, welcome in. Thank you for being here. I get that it's not the best choreographed scene, but I think it's such an important scene in the entire crux of the Star Wars saga. Rob, kind of touch on the scene with Vader and Obi-Wan.
I'll be honest with you guys, I never, ever looked down on that scene until you guys just mentioned it.
I don't either. I love it.
Every point you brought on it, yeah, it is kind of weak now that I'm thinking about it. But you see it off at a distance, and then the thing closes, and then that fight happens and everything. It's just, towards the end it closes and everything, and Luke seeing the fate of what happens here, I think it really changes him and builds up him and everything. It's intense. It really is cool. But I'm just trying to watch a little bit here too. And then it's just like the action, and I'm just every time I see that scene, that lightsaber scene and Luke's reaction, and then them going on the Millennium Falcon, and they're hightailing it out of there because Obi-Wan just cleared the shield. It's incredible. It's great. It's such a great scene. That might be like one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie. So maybe the second most favorite scene in the movie. I'd say that.
Dan, what about you, Dan?
Is the most. So.
Well, again, it's the same how I feel about the lightsaber battle, but it's more looking at it in Luke's perspective, which I really enjoy because he's already lost his aunt and uncle. You know that Obi-Wan's death is coming. So you kind of do feel for Luke, and you got Han screaming at him. It's like, come on, like Han and Leia, like, come on, shoot the blast door and get out of here, and I love how Han is just like, I hope the old man, got did his thing by turning off the tractor beam, and it's just like it gets really just quite emotional. It really does.
It does.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's one of my favorite scenes. Vader even says, he says, even if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. And then he looks over. I'm sorry?
Which is true.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, absolutely. You don't know what he means by that at first. You're like, what does he mean by that? You're dead. But we get it. And we get it actually a few seconds later where we start to understand what he's talking about. But when he strikes down Obi-Wan, I don't know about you guys, but what I remember mostly about that is he disappears. And you're like, why has he disappeared? Why isn't he just cut in half?
He got snapped by Thanos.
Yeah. Well, you don't know back then. You're like, why is he? Because the guy in the cantina didn't disappear. He just had his arm cut off and he's dead. Mm. But Obi-Wan disappears. And even Vader seems like he doesn't understand.
He steps on him.
Steps on him. It's like,
where's had a problem with him stepping on him?
Yeah. Where's the
body? It makes more sense when you watch more Star Wars films, though.
Absolutely.
So obviously, what will happen with other Jedi that will come later. But
it's a good tease to keep you kind of hooked as to where to go, and then all of a sudden you hear "Run, Luke, run!"
Yeah,
and it's Obi-Wan. You're like, wait, he's dead, and now it starts to click.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So cool.
Now we understand what you mean. Talk about the Force, and then you start to really understand what the Force is at this point. And then, like you said, they get on the ship. The tractor beam was taken down, or at least we think. And they get out, and they do, of course, the great fighting scene in space with the TIE fighters. I love that scene.
It's great.
I love it. I love where he's there. They're fighting the TIE fighters, and she goes, here they come, and you hear the music, and the TIE fighters go past them.
Well, I love Han Solo shooting one gun, Luke shooting the other gun. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know there was two guns on the Millennium Falcon. Where's the two guns? But where is it though?
Yeah. One's on the top and one's on the bottom.
Yeah,
that's the way it was. Oh, I guess because they go to the other movie. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I guess Chewie's piloting with Princess Leia, which is awesome.
Yeah, Chewie pilots.
And when Luke shoots one, he goes, "Great shot, kid. Don't get cocky." It's just great lines. This movie never seems to have a lull in it. It's always moving. It's never. How we talk about movies that have those lulls or those boring parts. If they're in this movie, they're hard to find for me. It always keeps up a good pace, in my opinion. And then then we finally they get away, and we think they get away, and then we have Vader talking to Grand Moff Tarkin, and he goes, "Are they away?" And yeah, he goes, "Yes, they're away." And he goes, "I'm taking an awful risk." Well, they tracked them. And I thought that's a great scene. I was glad they did that, because I would have felt less intimidated with the Empire if it was going to be that easy for them to get away. Because to be honest with you, it ultimately was. With a giant Death Star like that, they couldn't get them. And they only sent 4 ships out to go after them. But I like that they added that in. What do you guys think of that quick scene, but that scene as well? Rob?
It was definitely key. I'm glad they added it too. Yeah. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Yep, I do.
Well,
I really do.
It means the fight is not over.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And then we do finally get to that last scene. The final, it's the finale. It's the big fight scene with they're explained how to beat it, and they have to basically shoot 2 proton torpedoes in 2 meters, which I could never do if I was standing right next to it. And they go out there and they try to do it. It's one of the best parts of this entire movie, and it's very, very suspenseful. I felt it was anyway. And we can kind of touch on little scenes here and there, but I want you guys to kind of touch on the final scene, the final act of the movie, with the big battle at the planet Yavin with the rebel base behind it. Dan, we'll start with you this time. What do you think of that whole part?
This is one of my favorite last acts of any movie. I remember as a kid, I would sit on the floor, I would put 2 pillows beside me, and I would pretend I'm in one of the X-Wings doing a trench run. I love it so much because everything about this last act is just so incredible. The music, the effects, everything about it is just breathtaking. This was, for me, one of the biggest endings of any movie. It's last act endings of anything I've ever seen. Luke is, not a leader. He's taking part in this, in this group together. He has a red leader, he has a gold leader. He has to, command to them, and he has to really, follow them. And you see him as a pilot. He's a great pilot. He helps Wedge. He helps Biggs, and just the build up to it. You got the guys in the Y-wings. They fail. The guys who are in the X-Wings with the red leader, he fails. And you're just like, it's literally just Luke, Biggs, and Wedge, all just them 3. That's it. And the tension, and you got one shot at this, and it builds and builds and builds. You got, the guys behind, you got the Vader and these two goons behind him. I'm not going to spoil what happens to those 2 in the set, because we'll obviously talk about it. But just the tension that comes, like, and we have the music going da 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 da, like it's like like it goes, and you hear Obi-Wan, who really connects Luke with the Force. Just everything about it is great. Like, everything is just, for me, there are only a few movies which have a perfect, like, last climax of a movie. And that's one of them.
Yeah. And I want to touch back real fast, and Rob, you can touch on this too. What I forgot to mention was, before we even get to the final battle, Han Solo has left. He has decided that he is not staying. He is taking his bounty, his prize, and he is leaving. And like he said, what good is a reward if you're not around to use it? And he essentially abandons the rebellion and leaves. Or so we thought. And that has to be mentioned, because it's such an important part of the final part of this movie. But I agree 100%, Dan, on everything you said. Rob, what about you? What do you think of this last act?
Yeah, I almost remember being really disappointed in Han Solo. As a kid, you're naive. You're like, oh man, I can't believe it. He's leaving, So that kind of stood up where, when you see him come back, it's just like, oh my God. I guess I spoiled that part. But he's just like, oh my God, yeah. And it just kind of like the whole movie feels like it's like a slingshot, and then boom, they let that slingshot go. And I love that. I know Dan loves this final scene and everything. I'm glad you went with Dan first, because there's not much I can more there's not much more I could add to what Dan said, but I remember as a kid pretending I was in those scenes too. And those characters are so minor, but to me, oops, I know it's weird. I was pausing the movie and it knocked me off. Sorry about that. To me, I remember pretending to be those scenes, but to me, those characters, they're great. You know what I mean? You barely see him. You only just met him in the base and everything. And I'm glad you mentioned the characters and that they're going in there and everything. And it just reminds me of a video game. And they've made video games since and everything. And I love playing those video games where you're going into the, you're going into the Death Star to for Luke to finally win, the battle here. Just amazing. It really is cool.
Yeah, I agree. And what's funny is when he's out there and he's in this ship, one of his best friends is Biggs, who's out there with him. Han Solo has left him. We start losing X-Wing and Rebellion fighters left and right. Everybody that's tried the trench run has failed miserably. We got one shot away. It doesn't go in. And then we got basically 3 left. We've got Luke, Wedge, and Biggs who have to make the final run.
Yep.
And at this point, the Death Star is in range. It fires when ready. He even says it. You may fire when ready. And they start to prepare to fire. And it's like, are they going to get this done in time? It's like, are they going to get this done? And then Luke makes his run with Wedge, and he makes it with Biggs. And Wedge gets injured. His ship gets injured, and he has to, fly off. And then Biggs, his buddy, is the only one left with him. And he loses Biggs, his friend, and then it's just him and Darth Vader left. And he even says that Vader's like, the Force is strong with this one. And we know why, and we think he's going to get him. He's going to get him. And then out of nowhere, here comes Han Solo to kind of save the day and say, you're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home. Yeah. And I just think it's
interesting fact. I'm sorry, Walker. Just finish that thought. I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead. That's just great.
An interesting thought too. A lot of the other movies, it's a ton of bad ships, people, forces against the smaller odds of the good guy. In this movie, it's funny because it seems kind of equal, like the ships and everything.
Oh, it's mano y mano. I agree.
Right. But they have the Death Star, which is the ultimate. That's the ultimate task. That is their biggest nemesis. So that's kind of interesting too. They're not, these little smaller ships aren't really taking a huge force. They're getting through those ships and everything. They're holding them back. But the Death Star you're right. They're trying to power up the Death Star. And that is a flaw, obviously. So I love that they found the flaws. I love that they
yeah, and it's so funny too. Arrogance kills everything, doesn't it? Because they're there and they come up to Grand Moff Tarkin and they're like, sir, we analyzed their attack and there is a danger. Would you like us to have your ship ready? He goes, abandon now? In our moment of triumph? I think you overestimate their chances. Yeah. Well, I guess he learned his lesson, didn't he?
I love those what is the bad ships? And I love Darth Vader's special ship, his black ship, and the TIE fighters, right? I love the TIE fighters. They're such cool ships.
Yeah, you ever notice the bad guys always have the cooler ships?
I'm not gonna lie, I do prefer the X-Wing. I love X. I just think they look cool.
Like
how they expand. Like I just love that.
It's neat. Yeah, I agree. I do love the TIE fighters. There's just something about the TIE fighters. They're really
their noise. I love their noise.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? And anybody that knows Star Wars, the sounds. You ever notice that? Sounds from Star Wars. It's true. You just know. Like when you hear breathing, you know who it is right away. It's true. It's true. And then, of course, when they finally there and Luke's on that, and you'll talk about it, guys, here in a second. He's going down the path there to shoot, and Obi-Wan comes on and says, trust me, use the Force, let go. And this is where he finally trusts in the Force, because at this point you're still not sure. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But he turns off his monitor and he just shoots from the hip, basically using.
What I love is like Luke, you turned off your targeting computer. What's wrong? Nothing. I'm all right.
I would have been like, turn it back on, please. I'm down here. You're up there. No. But hearing Obi-Wan's voice, I think, is so important there as well. What do you guys think of that part as well? The final run.
it just brings that sense of emotion, though. It's just like you know, even though that Obi-Wan is gone, he still is very connected to Luke, and he's just like, you know, let go, and you know, the Force will be with you. Like, he's just talking to him now.
Yeah.
Not that Luke now has schizophrenia, but it's more just like
Never even thought of that. Maybe he does.
That's why he sees him in Empire and Return of the Jedi. And,
oh my god.
But no, it's just like, yeah, it just brings that sort of connection even further, even though that Obi-Wan is gone in his physical form.
Yeah, he's still with him.
Yeah.
And for me, it's one of the best parts of the movie is when he does blow it up and he's kind of heading back and he goes, "The Force will be with you always." It's just great. I love it. Rob?
Absolutely. Just everything you guys said, just amazing. Just the whole thing. Yeah, maybe we at the finale here now.
Yes.
That's where we're at. So yeah, I think maybe that might be my one big disappointment. You know, like when Luke hits that final thing, and I was jumping out of my seat. I was so crazy. I was going nuts and everything. And then they get to this award ceremony. It's phenomenal. It looks so cool. All those people are lined up and everything. And then when they give them the thing, and then that theme blasts in, you're like, yeah, it's just amazing. But I always felt maybe, and I guess they did their job. I always wanted more towards that end scene.
Can I just say, why didn't Chewie and Wedge didn't get a medal? Like,
oh, maybe they did. Maybe they did. Maybe they got their medals the day before.
I
Luke
see.
and Han's day.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. You know, we don't know. They might have got them.
But Chewie and Wedge had just as much of an important role. I mean, okay, granted, Luke actually blew up the Death Star.
Yeah, I think
but Wedge still had an amazing. If it weren't for Wedge, Luke would be dead because Wedge saved his life against a TIE fighter. And you know, Chewie is Han's co-pilot. So yeah, Wookiee. Yeah, Jeff, Wookiee rights.
Wookiee rights. Yeah,
don't discriminate against Wookiees.
Oh my God! Oh, and Robin asked, speaking of Star Wars, how do you guys feel about the park so far at this point? And we're going to get into that in just a second. The last scene for me, I think, is very cool. I like it. Love the music. They play the dun, 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 as they're walking down. It's so cool.
If I don't have that music played at my wedding, I don't know what will happen.
It's fantastic music, though. And then they get the medals. And if you guys remember from the Rise of Skywalker trailer, they do show the medal for like 2 seconds in the trailer. Did you guys catch that?
Nope. No.
You didn't catch that?
I love it. Now I'm going to watch.
You got to watch the trailer again. The medal is in the trailer for Rise of Skywalker. I saw it right away.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's there. You'll see it. Absolutely. Let me know when you see it. But I love that scene. I think it's great. And of course, you know, that's the movie. But the one thing, when they blew up the Death Star, they didn't get one guy, did they? He got away.
Yep. Vader got away. Cliffhanger right there.
And it was back then, because you're thinking, did they win or did they not win? Because he got away.
Yep.
Yeah, because you don't know. You don't know.
The big tin can bodyguard got away.
He got away. Yep. They didn't get the big bad guy, ultimately. And it was 3 years later till we found out what happened.
Exactly.
Yep. But let me, real fast, and we'll get into the parks, relations to the parks and all that in just a second here to kind of wrap up for the last 20 minutes. You guys, everybody in the chat's been great. Thank you for hanging on. You've been wonderful with the chatting as well. But I do want to ask you, Rob, we'll start with you. In the Star Wars saga, we talk about movies. How do you rank this movie? Where does this movie rank for you?
Well, spoiler alert, Walt told me where it ranked for him. So, and why I said it, Walt, because it made me think too. I always put, I guess I would always put Star Wars number one. I just would. So I put it number one. I don't think there's a discussion. Like, I want to hear your thoughts on it. I want to hear Dan's thoughts on it. But come on, started it all. It might. I don't know. In my opinion, too. Like I besides the prequels, I love 4, 5, 6. You know. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I love all the movies and I love different parts of it and everything. But I think as a whole, it started everything. I guess I just gotta put Star Wars number 1, you know. I just do.
All right, there you go. Number 1. Good job, Rob. Look at you. Dan?
I don't know. I'm interested. I kind of know Dan's answer, and I know kind of know Walt's answers, but I'm dying to know what you guys think.
So if you've been following my list, I've put Revenge of the Sith at 6th, Rogue One at 7th, Solo at 8th, Phantom Menace at 9th, Attack of the Clones at 10. A New Hope is number 2 for me. I think this is one. It's definitely one of my favorites. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't put it at number 2. It's a groundbreaking movie. This movie defined the summer blockbuster after Jaws. Like we wouldn't have this thing that we have today without this movie. This movie is groundbreaking in cinema. It's groundbreaking in entertainment as a whole. It is a movie that can never ever be replicated ever again. Okay, it just has so many themes to it that people say, okay, it's a sci-fi movie, but it's more than that. It's about a coming to age story. There's kind of like a romance tension kind of, scene to it. You got good versus evil. You got action. There's so much than just a sci-fi movie here. And it's great. And that's why I put it in number 2. There is one movie that I think people can guess would be number 1. But this is a strong number 2 by a narrow of margins.
Yeah. And for me, it's number 2 as well. The only reason why it's not number 1 is because what's number 1 is just jaw dropping and it's a game changer. But this one, there is no such thing as a perfect movie.
Wow.
I think maybe one for me. The only perfect movie I've ever seen for me was Shawshank.
Yeah.
That was my perfect movie. This one's really close in the sci-fi genre. This one about comes as perfect as it comes. Even better. I think it's even more perfect than number 1 because there's parts of number 1 that I think, my number 1 movie that I think are unnecessary, but not enough to not make it my number 1. This movie from start to finish, there's nothing about this movie I would change. I'm sorry, I just wouldn't. It flows. The acting is great. The writing is great. The cinematography is fantastic.
The original movie.
I'm sorry?
The original movie, not
the
with
original
added stuff. Right?
Yes, the original. The cinematography, the score, everything about this movie is done really well. The flow is throughout the movie. It never seems to cease. But it's still not number 1. It's number 2. I love it. I was so honored. It's nothing like being able to see it in real time at the age of 7. It was great. It really was.
Yeah.
So,
I know in the past I've said Return of the Jedi was my favorite, but and now watching last night, I'm gonna move it. I'm changing my mind. So now I'm thinking about it now. So I don't want to contradict myself from my other stream. I changed my mind. So that's the funny thing about it. I might change my mind next week. So because four, 5, and 6 are so close for me.
Yes.
So
Stacy says, DIzneyDan is your number 1 the movie we'll be talking about next month or the following month?
I ain't giving anything away.
That's right. You have to wait and see. That's
but
right.
we've already
I want to say my piece. So.
Here's the thing. We've already talked about 1, 2, and 3. Episodes 1, 2, and 3, Rogue One and Solo, and they were nowhere near, not even in my top 5. We filled in number 2 for me. Mm-hmm. So, we still have a couple movies left.
Is this a cliffhanger, guys?
Yeah.
This is a cliffhanger.
Here's a tease. Yep, absolutely.
I love it.
Yep, absolutely.
So
I just love the 3, so it's tough for me to pick. But
I
today, Star Wars is number 1.
There you go. And I think Rockin' Robin's favorite perfect movie is probably The Godfather because she said, make them an offer they can't refuse.
Again, brilliant movie.
That is a brilliant movie. That is a brilliant movie.
When you said about perfect movies, like there's only a few that come to mind, and one we may be talking about soon.
Yeah.
For me, and I would agree with you with Shawshank. I would put Alien there as well. I think Alien is groundbreaking in so many different ways. So there are some perfect movies out there, and you could argue and say Star Wars is one of those perfect movies because it has changed the movie industry. It completely changed it. It was revolutionary.
It also changed how movies do their merchandise. This is the first movie that really took merchandise of a movie to a whole nother level, too.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stacey, and it's bizarre because I'm sorry, Well, it's bizarre. I love the movie for so many, like the merchandising, for the toys, for the being a kid, for the action, for like there's so many different reasons why I love this movie. That's the most bizarre. Not because it's a movie per se, it's just because the legacy and just everything built on top of it over the years. It builds for me. It doesn't get worse.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead, Walt.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna say it's great. It's fantastic. And from there, I want to touch briefly. We got about 15 minutes left. I don't want to hang too much longer. I appreciate you guys being here and everybody in the chat for hanging out. We've been going at an hour.
We knew this was going 2 hours. We knew it.
I figured we might, but I do want to touch on the effect these movies have on the parks, because we're all at heart, we're all Disney channels. We all really, really take our channels and really talk a lot of Disney. So obviously we have to bring that tie-in of the Disney parks to the movies and vice versa. And Dan, I'll start with you. We'll touch on Galaxy's Edge in a minute, but let's talk Launch Bay. Let's talk Star Tours a little bit and how that has really brought it into the parks from the movies. What is your thoughts there?
Well, look, there's been a long history with Disney and Star Wars, even before they signed their deal back in 2009 or 12 or something like that.
Right.
So they've always had history in the parks. And even before Launch Bay, they had this great thing called Star Wars Weekends. I don't know if you guys remember Star Wars Weekends.
I do, yeah.
And this was pretty cool. I remember going to one event, and what they would do, they would completely deck out Hollywood Studios and make it all Star Wars themed. You can meet stars. You can actually meet Star Wars stars. You can be able to meet really obscure Star Wars characters, which was great. You could meet like Jango Fett, some of the bounty hunters. You can meet Ahsoka from the Clone Wars series. You could meet so many great stuff at Star Wars Weekends.
Jedi Mickey.
You can meet Jedi Mickey. Yeah. Darth Goofy and Princess
Donald Duck. Yeah.
Mrs. Minnie, Princess Minnie. So we had Star Wars Weekends, and I knew they were kind of going away because there was a load of speculation that we were going to get a themed land around it. We obviously had Launch Bay. We still have Launch Bay, but going round, Launch Bay will be going soon because it doesn't really make sense to have Launch Bay on one side of the park when you have Galaxy's Edge on the other side.
You think they're going to get rid of it?
Yeah, no. I've heard rumors that it's going.
Well, let me touch on that. Let me ask you this, because
move it,
but they can't move it, and here's why. It's inconsistent to the story they're trying to tell with Galaxy's Edge.
Yep.
Galaxy's Edge is about 7, 8, and 9. Launch Bay is about 4, 5, and 6. So in my opinion, I think you could leave Launch Bay because 4, 5, and 6 aren't supposed to tie into Galaxy's Edge.
They're not. No, they're not. No, you're absolutely right. But I don't think they're going to move it. I think they're just going to get rid of it, which is quite unfortunate. That's what I've heard. Don't quote me on it, but there have been some rumors going around.
Okay.
But with Launch Bay, I think it's great because there's that great film at the start. I think a lot of people miss the film, and it's really great. I think the film that you watch before you go into Launch Bay gives you the history of Star Wars and what's coming up, and Rebels and Clone Wars and The Mandalorian and the stuff that's coming on Disney Plus. And then you got some really great stuff. You could go meet Chewbacca, you can go meet Kylo Ren and BB-8. And there's some really great, stuff that's from the original Star Wars movie there as well. So, really, really awesome stuff there. Star Tours, before we had the Star Wars, The Adventures Continues, we had the original Star Tours, which was literally, you going on the trench run, you fighting the Empire, and your Star Tour speeder was joined kind of the Rebels, and you took the trench run, which was really great. And they really played it more to an episode 4, 5, and 6 kind of feel before they changed it to have all the 50 different combinations and whatever. So, Disney has always had history with Star Wars, and they've always had Star Tours, and they've also always had some sort of Path of the Jedi, where the kids can do the lightsaber battles and stuff with Vader and Kylo and whatever. And then they had things like Star Wars weekends and obviously the fireworks as well, the Star Wars fireworks.
Yeah. Rob, what about you? How do you like the way they incorporate Star Wars into the parks without getting into Galaxy's Edge? We'll get to that in a second. Let's just talk about what we've had so far.
Yeah, I always dreamed of working on Star Tours. Like I'd ride it every single day because I just love that attraction. It was one of my all-time favorite. It's great. Like I said, I was there the day of Launch Bay open. It was so cool to get to go see that opening and seeing all the big wigs there and seeing the Jawa walk around. And I love Launch Bay. I love the whole history of Star Wars and everything. You guys touched on it perfect and everything. So it's really great.
I think they've done a really good job to incorporate and celebrate Star Wars into the parks really, really well. I like Launch Bay. I really hope it doesn't go away. I think Kate Atwood made a good point. She says that she hopes it doesn't go away. She said it celebrates 4, 5, and 6.
Absolutely.
I think it does celebrate 4, 5, and 6, and that's why I'm hoping it stays. I love Star Tours. I think it's really cool. At the time, it was kind of groundbreaking for what it did. I think it's neat. I do like the fact that they've enhanced it and brought us different adventures. I think it helps to keep its relevance, where too it's not too redundant and then boring, where two people don't want to ride it. I hope it stays as well. I don't think it'll go away. Dan, do you think Star Tours will go away?
No, I don't. I don't think they will, especially as Galaxy's Edge is opening. I think people will be more inclined to go on Star Tours because they want to be in this Star Wars kind of mindset. So I don't think it'll go. It's only been maybe 6, 7, maybe 8 years when they redid the Star Tours to make it, the adventures continue.
Yeah.
It's still a very popular attraction. And it's still, and like I said yesterday on Disney Fiasco, it's the only tier 2 ride at Disney's Hollywood Studios.
I don't understand that, but okay.
All the others are tier 1.
That's crazy. For now. That's got to change.
For now, obviously.
That has to change.
Before Galaxy Edge does open.
Right.
Things change.
Yeah. And that's a good segue. Let's talk about that. We have 7, 8, and 9, which are under the Disney umbrella now. Because 4, 5, and 6, when they were done, were not owned by Disney at the time. So Disney is obviously going to really push their movies. And that's what Galaxy's Edge is supposed to be about. It's about 7, 8, and 9. Batu, over there. We understand that. And Rob, I want to start with you. What do you think of what you've seen so far of Galaxy's Edge out in Disneyland? And what are you hoping for with Galaxy's Edge at Disney World? And let's talk a little bit about those crowds so far out there. What do you think?
I think a lot of people got gun shy. It's a combination of they think it's going to be really crowded, and I think they wanted to wait for I think they chalked it up for a loss at this point. They've seen the mistakes and everything at Disneyland and the poor attendance and stuff, and I think that's why they finally announced, "Hey, it's coming! Let's do this." So, Rise of the Resistance announced their opening days and everything. So, I don't know. I think that really hurt because I'll be honest with you, that's me. I'm not going to Disney World or Disneyland unless I get to see both attractions. That's just my point. But I was telling Dan, and I think I was telling Walt for the stream too, watching Star Wars and everything, definitely the vibe and the feel and the droids and the blue milk, whatever. I never even remember the 2 seconds he drinks blue milk in the Star Wars and they have it in Galaxy's Edge and everything. It definitely I think they did a really good job actually with just watching Star Wars again for like the 50th time or something, today, and just because I've never watched it after seeing what happened with Galaxy's Edge. So after seeing Galaxy's Edge, all the footage and everything, and then going back and watch Star Wars, it was the same thing with me with watching Avatar and going to Pandora. I watched Avatar right before, and then I went to Pandora. So it definitely enhanced the experience. So it was. I feel watching Star Wars and the Star Wars movies, and then going to Galaxy's Edge will definitely put you more in the mindset and everything. So I think they just did a great job. And like the small little details I noticed in Star Wars, just the first movie and everything was really incorporated really well into Galaxy's Edge. I know it's not, about that movie, but it kind of had that feel and the I don't know. It definitely felt like a Star Wars movie. So
nice. What about you, Dan? What do you think so far?
Here's the thing: like everybody has been, talking about, Galaxy's Edge being a flop. It's not getting the attendance. They're reducing hours and stuff. And if I'm honest, Galaxy's Edge is not fully open yet. People, when they found out that, Rise of the Resistance is going to be opening later than something like Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run, and the rest of the land, I feel people are going to wait, to go on these attractions and wait for them both to be there. Because how would you feel if you went to Galaxy? This is how I'm going to feel this August. I'm going to go to Galaxy's Edge, hopefully, and I won't be able to ride Rise of the Resistance. And I feel that kind of is a little, I wish I had booked it a little later so I could go on Rise of the Resistance. Right. People are going to wait.
To be fair, when you booked it, though, you had no clue when
I had no idea. So, but now, this is how I feel now. But
right.
and to categorize it as a flop, it's been what, end of May, 2 months. Now, you can't categorize something as a flop in 2 months. I mean, that's like going to a restaurant that's just been opened and you get like one bad tiny bit of service or something that, isn't cooked right, and then categorize the restaurant as a bad restaurant. It's just like, give it time, right? Give it time. It's going to be massive, right? It's going to be even better when Rise of the Resistance does open. And I feel people are getting a little bit ungrateful. They're like, this is not what we want in Star Wars. Blah, blah, blah. This is not, Imagineers have been working on this for years and years with hard work. And to say, oh, it's a flop, it's not getting, the numbers in, blah, blah, blah. It's because the one of the rides isn't open yet. You can't.
So are you saying that's why you think crowds are down? Because crowds are noticeably down.
They are noticeably down because I feel the whole land is not complete yet. People, when they announced this at D23, people were like, okay, this is cool. You can ride the Millennium Falcon, blah, blah, blah. But when they heard about Rise of the Resistance and the ride and the experience that you're going to get to Rise of the Resistance, who wouldn't want to wait to go ride Rise of the Resistance? You're gonna miss the crowds that are going to be there opening day. And you're going to experience something that you're never going to experience before. This is going to be the next generation of attractions that comes after things like Flight of Passage. Flight of Passage was groundbreaking. This is going to be the next step in that with Rise of the Resistance. This is why people are waiting. Is it, the numbers are down because of this? Partly. Maybe everybody's waiting to come to Florida. Florida is more busy than California. That's just a known fact. It's bigger. You know? Absolutely. It's so I don't understand why people say it's a flop by looking at numbers when the actual land is not open fully yet.
Gotcha.
There we go. I can't believe I wasn't going to rant today, and there you go.
There it is. Put it in the chat.
Almost 2 hours before we had a rant. Here's my take on Galaxy's Edge. Okay. I feel like I think they are disappointed in the numbers. I do. And here's why I say that.
How could they not be?
Right. I do think they are. I think that when you look at past experiences with some lands that have opened, when they opened New Fantasyland at Magic Kingdom, that opened in phases. Mine Train did not open when they opened it. And Mine Train was I'm sorry?
It came out a year after.
Right. And that was the signature attraction for that time. Now, obviously, enhancements on technology over the years, but that was the main ride that was being built for New Fantasyland. And they opened in stages, and they did just fine. They had the crowds. So with this one, and, Pandora, I was there for Pandora when it opened. We got to do a pass-holder preview. The crowds were there for that, but both rides were open. I think that people are staying away. I do agree, Dan. For one, part of it is because they want that ride. But that being said, there is another signature ride there. I don't know why the crowds aren't there. I don't know if it's just people are afraid because they've heard that all these crowds are going to be there. And it's one of those things where everybody thinks everybody's going, but nobody goes, if you know what I mean. I can't explain why the crowds aren't there because I would still think that with all the merchandise, all the experiences, the droid experience, the lightsaber experience, the having the Millennium Falcon open, being able to experience a new land, I would think that the crowds would still be off the chain, and they're not even crowded. It's one thing to not be overly crowded? They're not crowded at all.
Period. The whole park, yeah.
So that's what I don't understand. I think they have enough to hook you.
I'm putting up 2 questions here. Do you think they regretted doing it the way they did? And is the same thing going to happen at Disney World? Go.
No.
No, they don't regret it.
I don't think they regret it at all. And I think it is going to be very different to what it is going to be in Florida.
Yes.
Let's take an example, right? Something that was released this month, Hagrid's adventure bike ride thing at Universal. Okay, that had a 10-hour wait for one ride. Now, granted, there are big fans of Harry Potter. Okay, you know, Harry Potter is a massive fan base, and of course, they were going to have lines that were incredibly long. The thing is with Disney World compared to Disneyland is, yes, it's the same area, but Disney World is bigger than Disneyland, and there is no way you could have a resort guest reservation system like they did in Disneyland, because at Disneyland there are 3 hotels, okay? Compared to Walt Disney World, there's over 20 hotels and much bigger resorts. It would be a lot tougher, or maybe a lot stricter reservations in order that to take place, which is why I believe there will not be a reservation system, because they wouldn't be able to cope with the amount of people that are in Disney World.
Well, right, because for one, Walt Disney World is more of a global destination. Yep. People from around the world will go to Walt Disney World. Disneyland is more of a local destination. You still have your people that go globally there, but nowhere near the numbers you get at Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom every single year is the most visited park in the world.
Yep.
Period. They do like 25 million people a year that go to just the Magic Kingdom.
Which is why I think that Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios is not going to be a flop in any sort of way whatsoever. In fact, I believe that the Hollywood Studios Galaxy's Edge is going to benefit the one in California, because people will be like, hey, it's so busy here at Hollywood Studios. Yeah,
let's go out there.
We can go out to California and do the exact same thing. Okay. Yeah. And I just feel like, on the bottom of my heart, Disney know what they're going to do, but they need to obviously let us know, because there's not going to be a reservation system. Are they going to stop us lining up outside at 2 a.m. in the morning? I don't feel Disney will let us line up a day beforehand, maybe hours before, but I don't feel that it would be logical, or there must be sort of safety issues if people were going to line up before, like the day before or 2 days before.
Rob, what do you think?
I posed the question.
Well, here's my question.
I'll truly tell you, Walt, I have no clue. That's my understanding.
That's kind of where
I had a clue, but now I don't know.
Well, here's my thing. When I think about Galaxy's Edge in Walt Disney World, Dan, you said they won't have a reservation system.
No.
But why? Why can't they make a reservation system for that capacity?
Because there's too many people. Like, there's too many resorts. There's too many like Hollywood Studios is not a big park. Realistically, it's not a big park compared to something like Animal Kingdom's Pandora, where you can actually use the park for its advantage to loop people round the park.
Well, okay. Well, how about a first come, first serve reservation system where they cap the amount of people, where at that point, first come, first serve on a reservation. If you don't get a reservation, you can wait in line with everybody else.
Like they have at Disneyland now, you're talking?
No, I think the one at Disneyland, you have to get a kind of, yeah, I mean, but something like that, would that work where it's a first come, first serve, Dan?
I really doubt they'll be able to cope with something like, think about everybody who's going to try and get on, like, it's difficult to get fast passes and dining reviews 180 days out on these systems anyway. So to have people smash their phones to get a reservation, it's going to be tough, which is why I think things like the annual pass previews is going to help a little bit.
Sure.
Because then the people for the annual passes won't necessarily go on opening day.
Right.
And I feel like there should be a rule in that with like, if you do get invited to the annual pass soft opening, you are not allowed to be that opening day because we want to get as many people in as possible. First
Like
come, first
blackout,
serve.
it would be.
It'll be a blackout.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
The only another issue I do find is it kind of is going to be very difficult for people who have, say, dining reservations or want to visit the park, not for Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
Because are they going to have a separate line for people who made dining reservations? Is it? I can't see that. I don't know whether they're going to do that or not, because I feel like it's a lot easier to get a dining reservation than it is to get this maybe reservation system that they're going to create for Galaxy's Edge. Like, it's going to be...
I get you, but they got to have some sort of plan. You can't just say it's a free-for-all, have at it. I'm sorry. You can't. You've got to have... Look, they've had openings for other lands too, not to the extent of what we're talking about. I get it. But you have got to have, and I think it was Kay or somebody said it in the chat, there's got to, or Myers from the Mal said it, you got to have some sort of plan. I'm sorry. You can't.
Well, they will. They're not going to not have a plan. I think
but they have to tell us that plan ahead of time, not the day of. That's what I'm getting at. Let's be proactive, not reactive.
You'll find out soon.
Yeah, I hope so. But I'm excited for it. I can't wait.
Good luck, man.
I hope it is dead.
You know what? I think there are some people who it might be a good idea because, on the 1st of September is extra magic hours.
Yeah.
Which I definitely will be there for 100%.
I'm trying.
But with the opening day, if you look at other places around Disney World, it will be empty. You can go to somewhere like Blizzard Beach and get everything done in an hour and then head over to Animal Kingdom and it will again be empty. So if you want to go to Disney and not go to Galaxy's Edge opening day, you're going to have a really easy day. Unless you go to somewhere like Magic Kingdom where it's always busy there anyway.
Right. Yep. I agree.
You go to Food and Wine. Food and Wine opens that same day as well.
I agree. Yeah. It'll definitely be less crowded. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
But well, there you go, guys. That is we started with the New Hope, and now we moved into Galaxy's Edge. We talked a ton of different topics today, and first and foremost, I just want to thank everybody in the chat for being very interactive. We thank you for being here. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed it for sticking with us. Some of you have been here the entire 2 hours. It's just been fantastic. I want to go around the table real fast with everybody in the panel and kind of talk about their channels and thank them for being here. We'll start with our special guest as usual, RobFuz. Rob, I hope you enjoyed this, buddy. We definitely enjoyed having you on. It's an honor to have you, bud. I hope you had a good time. You want to talk about your channel as well?
Yeah, thanks, guys. RobFuz across all the socials, RobFuz. YouTube channel is youtube.com/RobFuz. I talk Disney. I do a show, and Walt's been on my show too, Pub Talk. We do, and I do a show with my nephew Frankie every other Friday, Frankie Friday, and Pub Talk. We have a blast. I like to show retro videos. I do a lot of traveling too. I do some of my travels and stuff, and do some vlogging and some, obviously some live streams. And I love showing my old trips back to Disney World, Universal, different places around the world. I did some cruises, I travel. So definitely check out my channel. Thank you so much for letting me say that too. So
absolutely. Rob's channel is great, everybody. Be sure to check him out. He has a lot of retro videos for old Disney back in the day that are really fantastic. You guys got to check him out. And the Pub Talk that he does live streaming is fantastic. Dan's on there all the time. Lots of banter. It's just it's tons of fun. And if you're looking for a great live stream, be sure to check out Pub Talk or Frankie Friday for sure.
And Walt featured me a couple weeks ago. And I'll tell you on your channel. Thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. No, Community Spotlight, definitely well deserved, but absolutely. And then, of course, my partner channel, Dan, my partner in crime, pal. We do this every month. It's all we are the constants, and we always add flavor like Rob to the dish each week. That's what I like to say.
Great food analogy there.
Thank you very much.
Love it.
Thank you, buddy, for being here.
Wait, hold on. Dan likes food, really?
I know. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, thank you. And also you can add their Beverly Champion right here. Now, let me just say something very, very quickly. I released a video today calling out Steve and Shep and Patrick from DIzneyDan and Dave from Bradley and Dave. I want to tell everybody here, I am the current reigning, defending, undisputed heavyweight Beverly champion of YouTube because I am the one who currently holds the record, except for that guy who got 50-something odd, which was clearly faked out. Me and Corey from Corey Meets World did 10 each last year. So I currently, firstly, not only did I invent the challenge, I am currently the champion. So whatever any of those guys say, So guys, you guys can go and check out that little promo video I did on my channel. It was a lot of fun to film. Obviously, it's all parody. We all love each other, really. But it's going to be such a fun experience hanging out with those guys and doing some Beverly shots with them. It's going to be really, really fun. But yeah, you can follow me at DIzneyDan on YouTube, DIzneyDan. I do my Disney Fiasco show, which I'll be doing now for upcoming to 60 weeks, 60 episodes, which is crazy. We are something like 14 subscribers away from 1400, so we are so close, like 14 subs to go, and then we're at 1400 subscribers, and we're nearly at my watch time. It's just taking forever to get to my watch time.
It does.
We've got like 200 something hours to go. I've been saying that for weeks, but we still are around 200 hours to go. I'm not even kidding. Like, it's just crazy. I don't know why it's still not. Whatever. But guys, I really do appreciate. Thank you for everybody who's joined us. I really do. This thing that me and Walt have been doing, the Star Wars Sunday thing that we've been doing, has just been so much fun. I'm really happy now we're moving on to the really good movies. On that note, there is something that we'll have to figure out because Google Hangouts will be closing and shutting down on the 1st of August. So we will have to find a new way to set up this Star Wars Sunday.
Yes.
But it will happen. There's no shadow of doubt in my mind. It will happen in some sort of way. We will figure it out. But just to remind everybody that it may look different next time you see us together for doing Star Wars Sunday. But you know, we've been having such a great time doing this, and I can't wait for next month to do a special Star Wars Sunday or Star Wars collab live stream or video from Disney's Hollywood Studios with you, bud. So I'm really looking forward to it. That
it's gonna be
great. Yeah.
Wait, whoa, what? What do you guys? What'd you just announce?
Well, we've been playing this ages, like doing a Star Wars stream from the.
Oh, that's so cool! I didn't even know that. I'm sorry.
We might do it in front of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, or we might do it in front of Star Tours or Launch Bay.
Who knows?
Next month is going to be awesome.
That fixes the problem with Hangouts for that month.
For next month,
maybe.
Awesome. Congrats, guys.
Yeah, awesome. You can follow me at DIzneyDan on YouTube as well as Twitter, Instagram, and all that jazz. So thank you really a lot. Thank you everybody, and thank you Walt for hosting this week. It's going to be really great for next month as well.
Yep. Well, Dan does a better job of hosting than I do. I go all over the place. Dan's really in order with it. Usually I am, but when I get more than 2 people in here, I can't do it. Or 2 or more, I get terrible. But thank you both for being here. For us, as usual, Tuesday nights with Mouse Madness. This Tuesday is kind of a special one. If everybody can come out for sure, we are doing Epcot. I'm going to rank my Epcot rides and attractions all the way down to number 1. But it's also community spotlight night. We've been spotlighting Meg from Mickey's Magic all week, and I was supposed to go over her questions on Thursday's DVC live stream, and I forgot, and I feel terrible about it. But we are going to make it up to her on Tuesday's live stream. We are going to go over Meg's 10 questions from Community Spotlight. Meg's channel is fantastic.
She's great.
She's awesome.
She is great, and she definitely deserves it. So please come out and check out that. But after that stream, I got to plug this. It's the Great Debate of 2019. It's even bigger than Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny debating rabbit season and duck season. We have Miguel from A Disney Life for Me and Steve from Steve's World debating whether or not Elsa from Frozen is a villain or not.
That's funny.
Wow.
Tuesday night, right after my stream on A Disney Life for Me's channel, Miguel and Steve, mano y mano, debating it out on whether or not villain Elsa Frozen.
That's gonna be fun.
2 great channels there.
Yes, Scott, I had to plug it. I'm sorry. And of course, Dan, you are my partner channel, buddy. I appreciate you. Disney Fiasco on Saturday nights, everybody. Don't forget to check it out. Disney Food Fridays, most of the time with Dan. Check those out. Those are fantastic as well. I do want to plug my other partner channel, Steve from Steve's World, who is in the chat. He goes live on Mondays with Monday Madness, and he also does the DIzneyDan on Wednesday at 9:30, and he's with me on Saturdays for Sports Night. So tons of streams from all these great channels, everybody. Again, Rob, thank you, buddy. I hope you had a good time. We definitely appreciate you being here. We're honored to have a channel.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
As great as yours here. So thank you for, again, being here. And
Thanks, guys.
Dan, you're the best, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thank you, man. No, you guys.
Let's get Dan his hours in. Let's get Dan his hours in.
Yes.
Please play his videos. Let's get him. He's almost there, guys. He's almost there. Help out Dan.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yep, guys, please throw in their links in the description, both Rob's link
I just did.
and Dan's. Oh, did you? Okay, good. Please do
I
that.
did mine. I did Steve's. I did and I did
Good.
Of course, Dan's.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And everybody in the chat, again, we appreciate y'all being here. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. We had a great time with it. I'm glad we could finally have a incredibly positive show. And we thank.
I only nitpicked 1 or maybe 2 things that whole stream. That was
And I only had 1 rant.
It felt good. And I'm daily in 1 rant.
I only had 1 rant.
Congratulations, guys. That was awesome.
I loved it. But thank you all for joining us again. We definitely appreciate you. And as usual, everybody. Oh, tonight, Disney Life for Me, Jeopardy tonight. Be sure. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And we'll talk to you soon. And may the force be with you. Bye, everybody.
See you guys.